The year is 1991. I am -1 years old. There are some crazy movies at the box office. There's some crazy things going on in the world. And we thought we would celebrate the 35th anniversary of these movies on today's Three Picks. Stick around.
You can't just pick one. You can't just pick two. Oh no, you gotta pick three, or we ain't picking you. Three Picks.
And that's the episode.
The podcast. I
Yeah.
crack up every single time I listen to our intro music
Yeah.
because you think the intro is gone.
Yeah.
And then you come right back in with the podcast. I crack up every single time I hear it. By the way, if you do not know, our intro song is written, performed by our co-host here, Clint Tomerlin. It's an amazing little piece of music.
Thank you. Thank you. Welcome to Three Picks Podcast. Yeah, my name is Clint. This is my buddy Chris Kennedy, the yoga extraordinaire.
Hello. I love beer, I love movies, and I love yoga. And today, I'm ready for some vodka and pants pie.
See, and I'm already full up on mud pie, so I'm good. So today we're going to be talking about movies from 1991. They're all celebrating, at least at the time of this recording, their 35th anniversary. Chris, you were the only one of us alive in 1991, so why don't you walk us through what that magical year was like?
Yeah, so I was born in 1983, in December of 1983. So for the majority of 1991, I was 7 years old. My entire world was, as we talked about last week, video games, and it was movies. And this was such a really fun year to be a 7-year-old at the movies. We'll talk about a couple of those in this podcast. But as far as what was going on in the world, the biggest movie this year was Terminator 2 Judgment Day. Absolute blockbuster. This was one of those movies that, as a 7-year-old, I didn't see Terminator 2 Judgment Day in the theater. However, being a child of divorce, there was always one parent. If you're a child of divorce, there's usually one parent who is trying to make sure that you don't see things and do things that you probably shouldn't at that age. For me, that was my mother. I grew up very, very conservatively with her. And then on the weekends, whenever I would go hang out with my father or we would go on vacation, he'd be like, hey, do you want to watch Aliens? And this year, one of those big things was watching Terminator 2 Judgment Day. So this famously is the year that Silence of the Lambs won all of the Oscars. And so very few of these movies today actually took away Oscars, despite the fact that they probably should have, or if it had been 1 year sooner or later, would have been remembered much differently. And so that is, I think, one of the reasons that we chose this year to do this is there are movies that, you know, because they were coming up against the tidal wave of Silence of the Lambs, the tidal wave of Terminator 2 Judgment Day, we don't remember as much or as kindly as we probably should. And, you know, this was a totally different time. 35 years ago, this is a time where gas was $1.14 a gallon. $1.14.
Wow.
Can you remember that? No. Have you ever seen that in your lifetime, Clint?
I've seen $1 or something, yeah, just barely.
Yeah.
And yeah.
The cost of a movie ticket was $4.20.
Ugh.
You can't even go to a matinee for that anymore. Now, this is a kind of an oddity here. There's two things that have been shown, I think, through movies in particular, that despite inflation have stayed relatively the same. The cost of a video rental in 1991 was in my research was anywhere from $3 to $4. Well, guess what? If you're renting a movie on Apple TV today or Amazon or whatnot, you're usually paying anywhere from $2.99 to $4.99 for that movie. You know, we got these new releases that are renting for $19.99. That's another episode. I got a lot to say about that. This is something that I wish we would actually maybe go back to, and in a way we already have, but it's not serving the same purpose. Is that video ownership in 1991 looked a lot differently. Physical media looked a lot different whenever it came to movies. You did not have the opportunity to buy the the preferred medium at this time was VHS. VHS was not even widely available in 1991. There were
Wow.
very few movies that would come out and be priced for the average family to own. The average cost of, and you could buy any VHS you wanted. However, that VHS was going to cost you anywhere between $80 and $100.
Wow.
And I remember this. I remember certain movies at the video store being like $89.99. And I'm like, Dad, I want that. And I'm like, no way.
No.
The reason that they priced VHS tapes so high was, get this, they wanted to protect the theatrical runs.
Wow.
Because that was where they would make a lot of their money. And so instead of rushing movies out and making all their money on VHS, which I guess they just didn't realize at that time, they jacked up the price of VHSs to protect the money that they would make and to actually get people to go out and go to the theater. What a crazy idea. And
insane.
So we do have that kind of today with these shit stains that jack up the prices of the steelbooks and just make it harder for all the movie lovers to get some of these movies that we really love on 4K. And that is not contributing to longer run times in the theater, or longer. We already have longer run times in the theater, but longer theatrical runs in the theater. So stop buying up all the steelbooks and jacking them up. We don't need that in our life. We need accessibility to movies. All right. Minimum wage was about $4.25, and there was a couple of increases in that over the past couple of years, though. In relation to last week's episode, this was the year that the Super Nintendo Entertainment System launched.
Hell yeah.
So, being a 7-year-old in 1991, playing Super Nintendo, watching movies like T2 Judgment Day, City Slickers, and some things not so different. We had a Republican president, George H.W. Bush. We had a war in the Middle East. We gave birth to the 24-hour news cycle. And so this kind of was the year that, you know, the way in which we are devouring news, the way in which we are taking in a lot of what's going on in the world right now has its genesis in the year 1991. It's a really important year for this kind of stuff. Musically, we were making kind of the transition from glam rock to grunge. Nirvana releases the album Nevermind.
Huge
album. And so, 1991 was a bit of a transitional year. You could even think of it, I don't know, in terms of the switch from analog to digital in a lot of ways, because you started to see the insertion of certain CGI, very, very limited CGI effects, right alongside classical filmmaking. Really, really important year. Clint, I know you were not alive at this point in time, but what, you know, through friends, through your own research, looking at movies, what are your thoughts on the year 1991?
Yeah, well, for me, being a child of the 90s, but being born early in the 90s, I just missed it. 1992 is when I was born. But I have two older brothers, and so it was very much kind of the trickling down, the hand-me-downs of what they were into, I would get into as well. And so a lot of these movies, I mean, we grew up with Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves on VHS and saw it a bunch. We saw City Slickers a ton, Drop Dead Fred, the Addams Family, like a bunch of comedies that come out in the early 90s. I remember watching a ton. Terminator 2, that was, you know, a big one. I definitely saw Terminator 2 before I saw Terminator 1 as a kid. Like
Me too.
Yeah, it was like the bigger movie that, like you said, it was the biggest movie that year. And then when I got a little older, Silence of the Lambs was a seminal horror movie, you know, experience. I think that's kind of one of the staples of if you're getting into the genre. And growing up, someone was going to show you Silence of the Lambs. So yeah, even though I missed it by a year, I don't really feel like I missed, you know, much movie wise. Most of the ones from 91, I've seen a lot of great. When we were growing up, is a very sexist term, but chick flicks. This year we had Thelma and Louise, Sleeping with the Enemy, which I probably watched like 10 times growing up because my mom loved that movie. The Julia Roberts. It's intense. That movie is intense. And I really
love
was
that. That's a good one. It's a
great movie. I almost picked Sleeping with the Enemy. It's a great movie. And really you see like the blueprint for Seems like they took that and Lifetime movie channel, when we were growing up, they were like, what if we just made 1,000 of these movies over and over? So yeah, it was a good year. What, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which I've got my TMNT shirt on. That was the second one came out.
The
this
second
year as
one,
well.
Secret of the Ooze.
Yeah, which is not a euphemism.
By the way, that trilogy, 4K Arrow, go get it. It's so good. I didn't.
It's
I
great.
I went and saw last year's Ninja Turtle anniversary on the big screen. I did not see the Secret of Ooze screening this year. It was the same year, same weekend as the Oscars, but would have loved to.
Go Ninja, go.
All right, so we're going to get right into this. Our 3 picks for 1991 movies that are celebrating their 35th anniversary this year. Now, we do a fair amount of research for this, and not only that, we love watching movies. So a couple of movies that were honorable mentions for me that didn't quite make the list. A movie I had not seen in a really long time, The People Under the Stairs, is fantastic. Wes Craven.
Fuck yeah.
What else did I take in? What About Bob? What About Bob almost made my list. Classic Bill Murray. And yeah, so let's go ahead and get right into this. So we have chosen 3 movies each from the year 1991. My first pick is not controversial in any way, shape, or form. It is a concert documentary. It is Madonna's Truth or Dare, the documentary that took place over the course of her Blonde Ambition tour, which covered the albums for Like a Prayer and for the I'm Breathless album. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with the I'm Breathless album, this has a big cinematic tie as well. This was a really, really cool time that, again, it kind of You started to see the elegance of Hollywood, kind of the very curated framework in which movie stars would work. And you started to see that break down a little bit here. You started to see some vulnerability, a little bit of behind the scenes. And Madonna really was one of the first ones to do this. And so her I'm Breathless album came out in 1990, and that was the tie-in for the movie Dick Tracy that she starred in with Warren Beatty. And that was one of her attempts to, become a very legitimate actress. And I thought Madonna was great in Dick. Dick Tracy is a very cool movie if you go back and watch that. We don't talk about it much anymore, but I think Dick Tracy is a fantastic movie. This was one of the first films to really feature and center LGBTQ performers on screen. One of the first times to do that. You probably most remember images of this film from Jean-Paul Gaultier's designed big cone bras, big cone bras.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is a portrait of an artist 32 years old in the absolute prime time of her career, and you just get a lot of behind the scenes look. Now, in my research, I have found that a lot of these scenes were recreated or, hey, let's take that over again. But really, I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
This was such a cool viewing. And what a wonderful time capsule, because you get a lot of different celebrities that come in and out through this movie. She interacts with Kevin Costner, Warren Beatty, Antonio Banderas, Sandra Bernhardt. And in fact, I think my absolute favorite interaction that she has is with Kevin Costner toward the beginning of the film. Kevin Costner comes in full Prince of Thieves mullet. And this is how Kevin Costner describes his experience at Madonna's concert. He just says, "It was neat." Madonna says, "Neat." Okay. And then Kevin Costner goes off and she says, "He has to go. He has to go." And Warren Beatty, they were dating at the time. They were dating as a result of Dick Tracy. And you get a lot of just Warren Beatty sitting in the background while Madonna is talking, or really interesting scene where she's actually getting a voice exam.
Yeah.
And Warren Beatty's like, "Don't you want to do this off camera? Don't you want to talk about this off camera?" And she's like, "No, absolutely not." Da, da, da. And Warren Beatty, very kind of sarcastically, one of my favorite quotes of the movie, says, "Yeah, why would you want to say anything off camera?" And so to see those interactions between Warren and Madonna, very fascinating. Yeah. She had a voracious appetite for Antonio Banderas. about 3/4 of the way through the movie, and really cool. She's like, "Oh, Pedro." She's talking about Pedro.
Almodovar.
She's talking about Pedro Almodovar. It's how he's
Almodovar.
his name. There you go.
Yeah.
And so I guess this was post or right around the time of All About My Mother, right? Yeah. And so Pedro is throwing this dinner party for her, and the entire setup for this dinner party is she's gonna fuck Antonio Banderas.
Yeah.
She goes after him hard, and then finds out that he is married. And
Yeah.
she does back off. She actually does. I was actually surprised. She backs off quite a bit.
She's still pretty flirty with him.
Yeah.
And in front of the photographers, kisses him.
You also get a little bit of Sandra Bernhard, who was huge at this time.
And important to note that Sandra Bernhard, one of the few lesbian stand-up comedians at the time,
Oh,
and
yeah,
in
yeah.
this documentary is talking about dating a woman, which now whatever, but for 35 years ago, she was quite the trailblazer.
Yeah, and the way that this movie is shot, it's mostly in black and white. You get glimpses of color there, really kind of almost that handheld camera feel. You get a lot of shots of just kind of people talking in their bedroom or in their hotel rooms, in bed, multiple times, and this must have been a really cool and fun time. All these people look like they're having the best times of their lives.
Yeah.
They're hanging out in Europe and Canada, all over, and they're hanging out in hotel rooms, having great dinners, going shopping. It just looks like it was like such a fun time to be alive. You get a lot of talk about, and really interesting into how this would relate to today. You get a lot of free speech censorship talk here. And specifically, there's a very long segment toward the beginning of the movie where I believe they're in Toronto at the Sky Dome, and cops are there, and they're gonna threaten to arrest Madonna or shut down the show if she simulates masturbation. But what was it? Like a Virgin? Yeah, during Like a Virgin.
Yeah, Like a Virgin.
And so is talking about how it is at the beginning of each concert, they circle up and they say a prayer, and Madonna is there. Madonna is praying to God about how wonderful it is that in America we have freedom of speech and are not subject to this censorship that she's currently being subjected to in Canada. And now think about today. Think about what's going on today. It's amazing to me that they were having those kinds of concerns and really surpassing and just like blowing right past it in 1991. And today, totally different story. So when you were watching that aspect of it, Clint, do you have any thoughts on the masturbation, cops threatening to shut down Madonna's concert?
Yeah, it really brought me closer to her because I was like, man, if I had $1 for every time the cops told me they were going to arrest me for masturbating at a concert.
How much masturbation simulation do you do at your shows?
Yeah,
Clint?
at my shows, more than people expect. I think they expect zero, but they get a lot of it. No, seriously though, as an artist, it is cool to see, the kind of the bigger artists that came before that had to fight this fight. I think Madonna, a lot of it was because she was a woman. Not only that, but she was very open about her sexuality and combined all these things into her art. She talks about in the documentary that, pretty much being a provoker, like a provocateur, is the point for her. Like, she doesn't want people to be comfortable. She wants to push those boundaries. So it's a very specific art form that she's doing. And, it's aged really well, her sensibilities around that. And honestly, you wouldn't get, like any of the pop tours that you get in the last 15 years if it really weren't for the Blonde Ambition tour from Madonna in this period, 1990.
Even from that standpoint, this tour itself was very revolutionary.
Yeah, there's narratives around it, her songs and the tour. I think it's a great documentary. I do think it makes Madonna look bad in ways that I was not prepared for. There is a really weird scene, made me uncomfortable, about one of her stylists had been out in New York when they were stopping to perform in New York. She had gotten drugged and she woke up.
That's right.
She woke up in her hotel room by herself, didn't remember how she got there, and there's like blood coming from her butt is what is being described to Madonna, and Madonna laughs. Now, it seems like it comes from a place of being uncomfortable and not I'm not saying she thinks that sexual assault is funny, but it was really weird that she not like only left that in, but that they really just barely touch on that and then kind of make Madonna look like a really shitty boss and like she doesn't care about this lady. And then it just never comes up again. That really broke my heart. That's tough. So, but
Yeah.
also kudos, I guess, to her for not censoring, the
Yeah,
worst
and
of
that's
her.
she did not care about having this pristine personality, having, a lot of movie stars then, and even, well, I'd say even more so pop stars, music stars at that time, wanted to have flawless personalities. They did not want to show flaws, vulnerabilities in at all.
Yeah.
And this really did. And to her credit and to her fault, you see
Yeah.
a lot of that here. Some of the things that are captured on camera, some of the moments, I was shocked. This was a first time watch for me. This is a
Okay.
documentary I had always heard about, always known about. For some reason, I always thought it was like rated X or something like that.
I mean,
Well, now I'll say this. It's not widely available. I think just in the recent couple of years, you've actually been able to find it. But for a long time, you could not really get this anywhere. Of course, I think the real star here is, of course, the concert itself. A lot of the performances, the Vogue montage at the very end is
huge.
just perfect, man. It's so cool, so great. Not to mention that a lot of these songs come from an album that she collaborated with Stephen Sondheim on. And for a pop star to all of a sudden go from Like a Virgin and some of these real poppy things, and then going into just kind of a, I don't know, bluesy, jazzy type of thing, playing the piano, really cool stuff.
Yeah. It's I think it's also, and I'm not trying to like shit on Madonna, but I think it's important to note this as a musician, that one of the fair criticisms of Madonna, especially in this time of pivoting, was this weird duality of she championed black dancers and backup singers, and gay black dancers even. But at the same time, she really appropriated a lot of like African American music stylings and
Mm.
was very much kind of in the turn of that decade. Kind of goes into, you can even hear it in her voice in some of the performances. She's starting to copy some of the inflections of black gospel singers. You can hear it, and
Yeah,
it's
well,
very, yeah.
I wrote down, I was like, wow, there's even more dialects of hers that I had never
Yeah.
heard before. Been through Detroit, we've been through New
Yeah.
York, we've been through what you just discussed. We've gone through the Kabbalah kind of British,
Yeah.
elevated English, RP kind of dialect. She's
Yeah.
been all over the map when it comes
Yes.
to those types of things.
A performer. I mean, she loves acting even in the documentary. So you're getting a true documentary, but not in like you said, you can feel the recreation aspects, and you can feel when she knows how to turn certain things on in a room. I mean, and that's kind of what makes a star. But yeah, it's interesting. I think for especially in today's culture of we want to make decisions on is someone bad or good, and it's like Madonna was a trailblazer for women. She was a trailblazer for the gay community, but also she kind of appropriated stuff from the gay community. Also, she appropriated stuff from the African American community. This is the second most important documentary of that year for the gay community. The first being Paris is Burning, which had hit the festival circuit
yes.
in late 1990, but in 1991 actually came out in theaters. That is a much better documentary in my opinion. But I do think it's interesting, this duality of her, in that it's not so clear cut of, is Madonna good? Is it bad? It's, she's a very complicated person. And I that's kind of how I like my artists, I like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not clear cut either way. The documentary has some very homophobic things in it that it's weird because there's some beautiful moments where she's acting like almost like a mother to these people that have had such a hard time culturally, and then there's other moments where they choose to leave in scenes where they're throwing around the F word, and one of the straight dancers feeling bullied by some of the gay guys on the dance team. It's messy. It's messy, but it makes for a very, very interesting cultural touchstone. I think.
Yeah. This movie takes its title, Truth or Dare, from one in particular scene.
Man,
in this movie.
I was not expecting. I
didn't know. I did not know about this scene, did not realize it. So there is a scene this movie takes its title from, there where everyone from the concert on the tour is sitting around playing Truth or Dare. And finally, it comes around to Madonna. And the cameras just happen to be here at this exact moment doing this here, where someone dares her to show them how she performs fellatio. And for those of you that don't know that word, that's a blowjob.
Oh, I thought that was a Greek god or something.
It's not a cheese. It's not a cheese either. It's not like a French cheese. And she does. She takes a Coke bottle and performs fellatio on it for, fuck, man. She goes down on this bottle for a good, 3 minutes.
Yeah.
You get it all, man. And, cool. Good for her to be able to go that deep with what you're wanting to say as an artist.
Yeah. This is a pro sex podcast. So no shame, but it is crazy to see.
It was
someone
impressive.
that
It was an impressive
famous.
scene. I was impressed.
It is impressive. And it's one of those, you think that she's just going to kind of do it for a little bit. And then, like you said, she goes for it.
She, not only did she innovate in things in music and in movies, but she might have innovated and really brought a lot of new things to the world of blowjobs as well. Because where did you really see this? Did you see examples of this in other movies? No. For a lot of people, this might have been the first time that they had ever seen someone going deep throat on a Coke bottle before in their entire lives.
Yeah.
This movie was huge for its time as well. And I think I'm going to try to give some of the box office totals just for context for those of you that were not around for this, how big this was in terms of today. This movie at the time made $29 million worldwide, which even today, if you made $29 million worldwide, that might be an accomplishment today. But that basically is equivalent with inflation to about $65 to $70 million worldwide.
Damn.
So for a documentary, not bad at all.
Yeah, I couldn't help but thinking of Taylor Swift's, I guess she's the #1 concert documentary, but, imagine it's Madonna eras, but which era is this? This is the going down on a Coke bottle era. Like, oh, how do you plan
There's
her
a
outfit?
reason. There's a reason that the
around
album is. There's a reason the album is called "I'm Breathless."
Yeah, and the real MVP of this documentary is Warren Beatty. Just the absolute contempt he has for his girlfriend is wild. You know that they're about to break up because they don't seem to like each other even a little bit.
No, not at all.
And he's in his
Such
50s.
a weird.
At the time, he's like in his early 50s, so he's 20 years, older than her, just coming in with his big ass 1990 suits, just looking at everything with contempt because he's a real filmmaker. You can tell he's like, this stupid documentary.
But you had in this film Warren Beatty, Kevin Costner, basically almost at the pinnacle of Kevin Costner, definitely. Warren Beatty argued, it could have been Red, something like around in there. But Dick Tracy,
Bugsy,
Warren Beatty, this was huge. Oh, and Bugsy, yeah.
And Bugsy came out in 1991, did pretty well. Well, not only that, but Dances with Wolves is 1990. So Kevin Costner, when he is seeing Madonna backstage, because of the time of year, it's going to be right before I think he wins Oscars, or right after, like for all of the Dances with Wolves, what he wins, like Best Director, Best Picture. I mean, yeah, it's a crazy moment in time to see them together at the height of their powers. And Kevin Costner, you could tell, is too conservative.
He's so out of his element.
Was not ready. I don't know if his publicist was like, you gotta at least make an appearance at the Madonna concert. I'm sure. But yeah, he did not seem to enjoy it.
I wonder, did he sign the release before or after they filmed this? Because I just can't imagine. That dude was so protective over, his creative, he wanted creative control over everything.
Yeah.
And to be presented that way of just being no, it's a really neat show you just put on. And to have Madonna just be like, that dude's a doofus.
Yeah.
All right, well, that is my first pick. Check it out. I saw this on Canopy, the library streaming app. So check it out on Canopy. Really, really interesting time capsule of a documentary that does hold up mostly. I gave it 4 stars on Letterboxd. Really enjoyed it.
It's also on Pluto, which Pluto is...
is it really?
Yeah, it's kind of like Tubi. That's where I saw it. I will say Pluto has terrible ad placements. And so Canopy's a better way to watch it. But
Yeah.
if you don't have access to Canopy, Pluto is free and you can watch
Yeah.
there.
By the way, Canopy, you just need a library card, y'all. Go get a library card.
A library card.
Yeah.
Page Master.
All right, Clint, what is your third pick this week, or rather your first pick for
third, first.
35th anniversary?
Who's on?
One day we're gonna get this nomenclature down. We're new. We're new
making
to this
up. We're making this up as we go. So my pick, I gave myself some, because when I suggested, what if we do a 35th anniversary episode, then you realize, oh, I can choose 3 movies out of, a couple of hundred releases from 1991. So I had to give myself parameters because, tons of honorable mentions. Every honorable mention that you had would be an honorable mention for me. The Silence of the Lambs, as much as that movie took over the conversation that year, it was hard not to pick Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah.
Fucking classic. There are tons of weird little comedies, as I mentioned earlier, that were big nostalgia bombs for me. So to give myself some boundaries of picking, I thought, okay, I want one classic from that year, meaning that it has aged well. It's a well-regarded movie from a well-regarded filmmaker, and maybe has an Oscar nomination or two. I wanted one of those that wasn't Silence of the Lambs. And then I wanted to pick one of the nostalgic movies of my childhood from that time. And then like you, I wanted to check out some blind spots. So for me, my first pick, this is one that I had never seen before. This is 1991's Toy Soldiers with Sean Astin and Lou Gossett Jr. and
Marcus Brody.
Yeah, exactly. Will Wheaton and Keith Coogan, I believe, is a kid from the 90s that you saw him pop up in like Adventures in Babysitting and a bunch of movies. I was always apprehensive to watch it because of the plot. Because for me, growing up in a post, I guess Columbine, the shooting happened, when I was in middle school, I guess.
Yeah. I had just started high school.
But no matter how young you were, you remember when that happened. And we mentioned this in the Oscars episode because there's documentaries and movies about school shootings. This is like bringing guns and violence into schools. This was not something that you did for a studio movie, except for 1991's Toy Soldiers. When I read the plot to it, I was like, what? There's no way this movie exists, because it is about a all-boys prep school that, because of a very movie action plot scenario, they are taken hostage by a Colombian drug lord / terrorists. And so the kids have to survive this hostage situation with these terrorists. And not only that, but it's called Toy Soldiers because these kids, a group of them, decide to fight back. Very Red Dawn-ish. You could tell that because Red Dawn had come out in the late 80s. And so you could see someone in the pitch room was like Dead Poet Society and Red Dawn meets Rambo. Like it's going to be these young high schoolers, but also we're going to see if they can't beat the bad guys. Very much from that Reagan era of American action, good guys beat the guys, the kind of xenophobic bad guys from another country. I think it encapsulates the difference in our cultures. As much as you talked about the things that haven't changed, this is a big thing that has changed. There is no studio in their right mind would be like, yeah, let's do a kids save the day against terrorists in a school setting movie.
Well, insane. I have to imagine that this movie was one of the many in the vein of, this is the very famous movie pitch of this time, was Die Hard in A, Die Hard on A. So you Under Siege, Die Hard on a boat.
Yeah.
You had Die Hard everywhere. And so this movie is often referred to as Die Hard in a school. I disagree with that. This is Die Hard with Nepo babies.
It is. And that's one of the things that has aged well in the movie. There's a lot that has aged poorly and a lot that it has aged well. I think what has aged well are the character actors. Sean Astin, incredible actor. I think he is a little underrated as an actor because he's so much of for people of a certain generation, he's, the school movie actor. and he's Rudy, and he's Toy Soldiers, The Goonies, these movies that are big for that generation. And then for
Encino Man.
I fucking love Encino Man. Dude, you gotta wheeze the juice. And now with Lord of the Rings, then I think he should have been nominated for Lord of the Rings, but that's a whole other podcast. I think Sean Astin's incredible in Lord of the Rings. I think he's the best actor in that series, but that's another conversation.
Oh, and now he's president, right? He's president.
President of the Screen Actors Guild now, which is crazy. And he's in one of the seasons of Stranger Things. He's had a bit of a resurgence. I think the Lord of the Rings movies recently have been celebrating anniversaries. He's been making podcast rounds. I enjoy his thoughts on acting and the industry. I think he's a good leader. He's a natural, charismatic leader, and he gets to play in this movie. He's the kid that has been kicked out of every other prep school. And he's the bad boy. When he's
a little jerk off, man. This kid is a little fucking. I've met a bajillion of these little kids whenever I was in these Sean Astin types in education. He's fucker.
Sarcastic.
Little fucker. That's what we would call a little fucker.
He's spray painting over the sign when you first see him in the movie. He's making his own homemade vodka and putting them in mouthwash bottles and selling them.
Right there. Hold on. This is one of the greatest alcoholic movie concoctions of all. Like, if you're having a themed movie party, you need to have I wrote down this recipe. Yeah. It's in this. If you haven't seen Toy Soldiers, but they make this cocktail, but then they have to hide it because they're in school, of course, and they're all under 21. So they get the mouthwash bottles, and in the mouthwash bottles, they combine vodka, peppermint schnapps, and creme de menthe. And so, which I'm willing to. I want to take this shot at some point. I would like to take shots of this at some point in time. I'm sure it is incredibly sweet and blah blah blah. But if you're having a movie themed party, this is a great drink to serve.
That is a good idea. And it's a great scene. One of my favorite scenes in the movie is there's this core group that the movie follows. Sean Astin's kind of like the ringleader, gets him in trouble. There's like 5 of these kids, and so they hide down in the basement. One of the things that this scene does is not only is it a classic early 90s, this is kids hanging out, and they're going to say stuff like shit, and they're going to try to drink alcohol. But it also, in a fun way, shows that Sean Astin's character is actually kind of like a genius, and that lo and behold, he's deflecting because of the trouble in his life, his feeling of not being wanted and being passed off from school to school. And I think as a teacher, you get this. Often kids that seem to act out in school environments aren't just because they're little assholes. It's often because the environment doesn't meet their needs of how they process the world. And so you have this kid he's like what does he do? He taps into the phone lines. Like, he takes over the phone lines in the basement, builds a little like phone tap in so he can call a sex phone worker. So
not just by himself, but with this whole group of guys in this basement.
It's a funny scene because they're all taking turns like telling this sex worker what to do, what they want done. And he's going around describing himself, and he's just taking different elements of all the kids.
I've got big feet, the big hairy feet. I want you to suck on my big hobbit toes.
No, it's not. You have to pay extra for foot stuff. It's a real two-hander as far as like Sean Astin is definitely the lead of the movie for the kids. But on the adult side of things, Lou Gossett Jr., he plays the co-headmaster in this. I don't think he's like I guess he's the principal, not the headmaster. I don't know, prep school rules.
Totally,
that was weird.
This was also a first watch for me, so I guess he's like in real terms he'd be like dean of students or something like that.
Yeah, because there is a headmaster.
A lot.
Yeah, there is a headmaster, but it's an interesting dynamic. But Lou Gossett Jr., which he's just. This man, I would follow him to the gates of hell. There is this charisma, this quiet charisma that he has, where he doesn't even have to say shit, and he's just giving you a look, and you're like, man, that guy, he knows what's up. That's the boss right there. I'm going to follow that guy. And he is so good in this. This is a cheesy early 90s movie, but there are some real gem of performances from Sean Astin and Lou Gossett Jr. You can see why this movie still has its fans through the decades, and I think a lot of it comes from their their rapport together, because you can tell that Lou Gossett's character sees that Billy, which is Sean Astin's character's name, that Billy could do so much more with his life, and that he really sees him, but still doesn't excuse the bullshit behavior. And they have a really great dynamic, almost like a surrogate father-son dynamic that is really touching. I at least for me, I thought it was really touching.
Every educator in the world should watch Louis Gossett's performance here, because if Sean Astin had done some of the stuff that he does in this movie, under a normal educator, he would just be expelled. He would be pushed off. He would just be shuffled off. And Louis Gossett makes a very specific point of saying, well, you've already been shuffled off to everywhere else. What would kicking you out of here make any other difference? That in and of itself, such a wonderful mentor, educator standpoint or a viewpoint to take. And yeah, I want this man to be my mentor. I want him to be my boss. I want to learn from him to this day. It's such a wonderful, warm performance from Louis Gossett. Really enjoyed it.
So that's some of the really heartwarming parts of Toy Soldiers. There is also the elephant of the room that there's some bumbling terrorists that are supposed to be scary, these Colombian drug lord terrorists, but they're really not. They're not adept. They're really out of their league, which I guess makes it more believable that these kids could face up against them, because basically the leader of this Colombian drug cartel is the father. He's like the biggest drug cartel, I guess, in Colombia. He gets arrested and put away in prison. And so the setup is that his son, who's now leading the rest of the cartel, he is going to kidnap the son of a high-ranking official in the government who goes to school at this prep school with Sean Astin and the rest of the classmates. So his plan is, I'm going to take my buddies and we're going to literally take the school hostage. And so we can do a swap. They let my dad go and then we'll let this kid go. Well, the government hears about this plan, and so they move the kid out of the school. So this kid's not even at the fucking school. And these dipshits all show up and take over this. I mean, there's so many students. There's like, what, they do a head count to make sure it's like 91 students or something.
The security protocols that this drug cartel puts into place as they are taking this entire school hostage are astonishing to me.
It is genuinely disturbing to see men with guns in a school, especially by today's standards. Like, gun violence is rampant. We have a much different viewpoint of guns and violence in movies. This was definitely a different time, but you can take some solace when you're watching this movie in the fact that you're like, these guys really don't seem to know what the fuck that they're doing. So there's actually a chance that these kids are going to be all right.
Yeah, my big takeaway, I think I texted this to you too.
You did.
My biggest takeaway from this movie was this is the most inept group of drug cartel narco terrorists that have ever existed. The movie starts out in, I can't remember where.
I guess Colombia.
Is it? It has to be. I guess the most cliche. It has to be Colombia. And so it's at a court. They're at a courthouse, and they've taken over this courthouse hostage, and they're so dumb that they don't even realize. They're like, oh, we're watching the plane. We know that you've got him on the plane. And the judge is like, actually, he's already in America.
Yeah.
They don't even realize that he's already gone. And then, oh, man, but I tell you what, that first 10 minutes of this movie, shit, that's like a whole nother movie in and of itself, starring like Sylvester Stallone or something. And I tell you what, they just push this woman out of a window. And she just fucking eats it on the sidewalk. And they don't hide too much about it, man. It's fucking intense.
It's wild how it starts off as a kind of a boilerplate Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone action movie. And then it's like
the end of Commando or something. I mean,
yeah. And then it goes to the school and it's like, ba, ba, da, da, da. It's like the 90s, like kind of like, hey, everyone's having fun at school music. And you're like, what the fuck?
And then when this very, intelligent group of terrorists, do they lock all of these young men in one room? Do they put them all in the shower room or, just keep them in one place secure? No. They're like, Your education is important. We want you to continue to have classes. You need to be outside. You need your vitamin D. So go outside, do crunches. Do crunches
Yeah.
while you are outside. Marcus Brody is out there giving a lesson on the quad. Like, for all intents and purposes, they are making this the most pleasant hostage takeover of
Yeah.
all time.
You just have to be there for head count. When anytime they do
you
head
just
count,
make sure you are there for head count. That's how
And if
they
you're-
kind of make sure things are in line.
and if you're not there, they
Nightly
said
head count.
they're going to kill students. So I don't think another movie exists with this weird dynamic of this makes me uneasy, this threatening of the children and the students and the gun violence, and yet also it's cheesy and I'm kind of laughing at it and I'm kind of having fun, and it feels it's just this weird relic of 91. There's some great scenes though with these kid actors, I mean, having Sean Astin, having Will Wheaton, Keith Coogan. It's kind of funny. This is a deep cut. One of the movies that I cherish from my childhood and own on Blu-ray is Adventures in Babysitting. And so
yes.
Keith is also in that movie. One of the big things is, because God, who didn't love Elizabeth Shue? Woo, still love Elizabeth Shue. But Keith's character in Adventures in Babysitting, he finds a Playboy. This was like a magazine, this is how guys used to look at porn back in the day.
Do young men know about Playboy anymore?
I don't think so. I mean, it was,
either.
it kind of had its last hurrah with all the reality TV shows around Hugh Hefner and the
yeah.
Playboy Mansion. And then it just kind of, now like where, that is also a relic. And so in Adventures of Babysitting, he's looking at a Playboy and there is a Playboy model who kind of looks like Elizabeth Shue, and he like freaks out because he has a crush on his babysitter. And there's a really funny moment in Toy Soldiers where after they've been taken hostage, they get to go back to their room, and so these misfits that are together all in the room, and Keith's character pulls out a Playboy and starts looking at it, and Will Wheaton goes, "I guess some things never change." And I don't know if it was meant to be a reference to Adventures of Babysitting, but like I was like, oh my God, that's crazy. Like that was just a couple of years before this. So and what a relic as well, Playboys. There's remote controlled helicopters in here that are
there's a very cool use of the remote. But I'm like, this is like very early drone work here.
Yes.
Sean Astin's like pioneering drones.
Yeah, I recommend the movie to most people with the asterisk of, if gun violence regarding kids bothers you or is personally triggering, then yeah, don't watch this. And there is, without spoiling who it is, there is one scene where they do go there, because it kind of lulls you.
I was about to spoil this. This movie's 35 years old.
I will spoil it. Okay. We'll say who dies. There is one kid that dies. Will Wheaton's character gets shot. I guess, suck at Star Trek fans.
Because they're like, we've made contact with your mother on the Enterprise, because I don't know if we specifically said it, but it comes out in this movie that all these kids are not necessarily, they are all rejects and troublemakers and stuff, but they are all children of important people in the government. I think
judges.
One is the head of the Republican National Committee.
I think that's a kid who looks at the Playboy. His dad is the
Will Wheaton is the son of
a mafioso.
A mafioso in New York or something like that. I just like to assume that, I like to pretend in this movie as I was watching it that they're really talking about Beverly Crusher being the highest ranking doctor in Starfleet. And so they're like, we got in contact with your mother and we'll be beaming you up to the Starship Enterprise. and so they start walking them out.
Yeah, Will Wheaton is going to be let go because his dad, really it's because his dad's in the mafia and he's pulling strings, but he hates his dad. He hates what his dad represents. He doesn't want to be like him. And so instead of taking this special treatment, he actually fights one of the guys that goes to get him. He wrestles a gun away. He shoots one of them, I believe, and then he runs out with a machine gun and gets gunned down himself.
Oh, he gets smoked, man.
It's bad. I was, because the movie is kind of cheesy and because it lulls you into this false sense of security where you're like, well, they're not going to kill the kids, like it just, and I don't know if it's because it's 2026 and that was just, I'm like, surely because this movie is so flippant with everything, it's not going to. But no, it like slow motion shows him get gunned down. They show him like
very good squib work here.
Yeah, it made me realize oh, this movie is R-rated. Like this was an R-rated action film.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And not only that, but then it's another fuck up from the terrorists, which they actually know. It's really funny. It's not funny that the kid dies, but it's the mafia boss's kid. And the lead terrorist knows this. And so he's looking at his body and he's like, oh my God. And Gossett Jr. comes to get the kid. And he's like, make sure that they know that we didn't do this. Like the kid ran out with a gun and we had to shoot him. He's like scared for his life. He's like,
he doesn't say it just what he says this like
He keeps
3
saying
or
it.
4 times. Like
make sure, very Curb Your Enthusiasm. It just bump, bump, bump. Although, and as silly as that is, that's what's so weird about this movie, so bipolar, because it's a silly, funny moment that you're like, yeah, this guy's fucked. But then Gossett Jr. comes in and acts his ass off. And you see that that this line has been crossed, that one of his students has been killed. And you see this fire and anger in his eyes when he's talking to this terrorist. Oh, man. I was like, dude, I wouldn't worry about the mafia boss.
Yeah.
Like, this motherfucker's going to kill you. So, yeah. And there's a really cool... Gossett Jr. gets to kind of put on his military game face and be a badass in the last 5 minutes. Another interesting connection from movies from this era. So Gossett Jr. had already won the Oscar for Officer and a Gentleman, Best Supporting Actor at this point. Arlie Emery. Wait, how do you say his last name? The guy, Full Metal Jacket.
Emery.
Arlie Emery. He was he was a real-time military dude that got Stanley Kubrick brought in for Full Metal Jacket. He was almost Gossett Jr.'s part in Toy Soldiers. Like, I guess he went up for the role as well. And then they were like, oh, we'll make him the military liaison who shows up.
Good.
And what's crazy is Gossett Jr. actually was consulted on Officer and a Gentleman by Arlie Emery. He taught him like how to be a commanding officer, and they actually worked together on that. So I thought that was an interesting. They got to be in the movie together, and it kind of brought their worlds together. So yeah, Toy Soldiers, crazy movie. Yeah, if you can stomach it, it's a easy recommend for me.
Yeah, absolutely. This movie didn't make that much money. Worldwide gross was about 14.6 million. So adjusted for inflation, that would have been around 36. So basically, what most movies are doing today is what this movie did.
Yeah. So which made
this movie would have fit in just
successful.
fine in today's financial, picture.
Yeah.
My second pick for 35th anniversary movies. This is possibly one of my absolute favorite comedy movies of all time. This is the Addams Family from 1991, the directorial debut of one Barry Sonnenfeld, who went on to Men in Black fame, all sorts of wonderful movies. What's your favorite Barry Sonnenfeld film, Clint?
Well, are we talking directing or cinematography? Because he was the cinematographer for the Coen brothers before he started making movies. So I think cinematography-wise, it's probably Miller's Crossing. She had lensed a couple of years before Addams Family. But Addams Family is a banger.
Yeah, so Addams Family, this was actually, for as successful as this movie was, it had a very, very troubled production. Orion, the production company, one of my favorite intros to movies growing up. In fact, I was going to say, during Toy Soldiers, the very first note that I had was, man, I miss the TriStar opening.
Yeah.
Movie intro, like production company intros, I feel is a bit of a lost art right now. And there's so many of those classic sounds that I remember from putting in the VHS that I absolutely love. And that was Orion is one of them. TriStar is one of them.
TriStar was great.
And so, of course, Addams Family based on the 1930 Charles Addams comic, and then the TV show from the 1960s, which I actually had quite a bit of experience with because of Nick at Night. Yeah. And as I was watching this, I was trying to think, is there any kind of equivalent this day and age to where the youth of today, the Gen Zers, are picking up on Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Step by Step, Family Matters, all of these TGIF shows that we grow up with, because I was able to take in everything that my parents watched when they were young because of Nick at Night. Dobie Gillis, The Munsters, Addams Family, Bewitched, Brady Bunch, all of these great shows. I would watch every single day along with the shows that I was watching. You had this opportunity with all these 30, late 20s, 30, 40-year-old parents with their 5 to 10-year-olds able to go see this movie that everyone could enjoy. But this was such a dark comedic movie. It did not fit very nicely. It did not fit into any given quadrant that any production in any studio's marketing firm would be able to predict. And this movie ended up being absolutely gigantic. It made, I'm just going to go straight into the box office here. It made $191 million worldwide, which today would be around $500 million. $500 million.
Damn.
This would be a huge, huge hit. It was a huge hit then. It would still be a huge hit today. It's a lesson I think that we don't think that we fully learned. IP-driven property. And then you combine that with all these wonderfully classically trained, experienced actors, Oscar winners, Angelica Houston, Raul Julia, Christopher Lloyd. And then you add in a bit of the new generation. You've got Christina Ricci, and I believe it was her first role as well. And then add a pop song. We get an MC Hammer, a great MC Hammer. So actually, it won the Razzie. There were Razzies back then, and it won the Razzie for worst song that year. So, but you had the pop song, you had the classically trained actors, you had a little bit of the new generation. You have an IP that was familiar, but not necessarily at the top of everyone's mind at that point in time. And so, and I think that when you have that little bit of familiarity with something and then you interject those kinds of things with it, that's where the real success comes. But this has to be one of the best movie houses of all time.
Hell yeah.
I want to live here. I would live here in a second. I mean, you were introduced very, very quickly. You've got Gomez, and not only that, but the script of this movie I think is very well written, very tight, and it went through tons and tons of rewrites. But within the first 2 or 3 minutes, you have the entire crux of the story, everything that you need to know. You've got Gomez. These shots through the hallways of the house. You've got Thing, crawling around, introducing you to the house, and Gomez is there at the doorstep of Fester's room, and within the first few minutes, you understand that Fester is gone, that he was lost to the Bermuda Triangle, a thing in movies that we don't get enough of anymore. I could go for a lot more Bermuda Triangle talk in my movies these days. You have the scene where Tully, the attorney played by Dan Hedaya, comes in, and Raul Julia, they're fencing whatnot, and Raul Julia goes, "Dirty pool, old man, dirty pool." And you've got the library, you got the book where it comes down and it opens a secret passageway, and then you go into the little cage area and you have to reach up and grab the thing. And depending on which chain you choose, this has to be the definition of a fun house. The humor in this movie. If I were to try to describe what my type of humor is, it is this type of humor. It's a humor that embraces weirdness, that embraces a little bit of darkness to it. Even Raul Julia, one of my favorite quotes here about this movie, Raul Julia says about Gomez that even his depressions are beautiful. At the core of this movie, you have such a wonderful lesson about just kind of being yourself. And it's this weird reversal of roles of how, the Addams, for as weird and quirky as they are presented as the normal people that view everyone else. They're the normal good people. And then all the normal people are the evil, greedy, evil people. And I'll say this. My hot take on this film is that Gomez and Morticia are the best example of a marriage on film.
Ooh, I would say it's the horniest marriage on film.
Well, shouldn't that be a part of marriage? Shouldn't you be horny?
It is.
I want to be horny. I mean, yeah.
Well, you've succeeded.
They go after it. It's a great example of just two people really desiring each other, no matter what's going on.
It's the first scene with Morticia where she's in bed and he's waking her up. Do you have the line? Okay.
She goes, "Gomez, you were unhinged, a howling demon. You frightened me. Do it again." Gomez describes of Morticia, "I would die for her. I would kill for her. Either way, what bliss."
Either way, what bliss? He's so good.
It's
So good in this movie.
and just the way that these two, I mean, probably one of my favorite scenes here is the auction scene where they have put up a Chinese finger trap for auction. They're the ones who have donated this item. They go to the auction and at first they're kind of infuriated because they're like that they're not betting, they're not selling it for enough. And then Morticia and Gomez start betting on their own finger trap, and then all of a sudden it becomes very orgasmic. It becomes very like they turn this auction into a very, very sexual competition. It's just
great.
absolutely fantastic. To me, it's just whenever you think about your, in a relationship and a partner, this is what I think so many people want, to be desired to this level for the length of time that these two have been together. Cara mia, the speaking to each other in French, the dancing, the elegance, the class, just the constant kissing and just be, no matter what someone, even when she just starts to, the hint of French in Raul Julia go, oh, Tish, that's French. Really great, just like relationship movie, be yourself movie. And then getting back to like some of the humor, one of my favorite jokes in this movie is, again, they've gone through the fun house. He's taking Fester to go to the family fortune, and they get to the final lock before they get to the treasure. And of course, they've been brothers, and Fester is expected to know like all these old family secrets and stuff like that. And Gomez, he gets to the lock and he says, all right, 2, 10. And Fester says something like 7. And he's like, no, 2, 10, 11. Eyes, fingers, toes. You got
so funny.
The granny's talking about the human spirit. She says, the human spirit is such a hard thing to kill, even with a chainsaw. Some of the standout scenes here, we got the school play with all the blood and all that. Actually, my favorite bit is with Morticia and the teacher out in the hallway before they go through their heroes, and there's like a picture of like Barbara Bush and Jane Pauley, and then there's like this scribbledy like picture of this witch being burned, and she's like, oh yes, that was Wednesday's great aunt Calpurnia or something like that, burned at the stake. And she's like, don't worry, we told her college comes first. And then you got another mom who's like, dabbing her kids like dirt off of the cheek, and she goes, I could just eat you. And Morticia interjects, she's like, oh no, Margaret, too young. So many great one-liners in here. I was able to watch the there are some great 4Ks of this. I recommend picking up the 4K that has more Mamushka, the dance of brotherly love. It is literally the only extended version of this 4K is the Mamushka, and it is a wonderful like 5-minute sequence. It really stands out. Have you ever, Clint, with your brothers, did you ever put each other in an electric chair and play Is There a God?
No, it's something I wish I had with my brothers. No, we never tried to kill each other, unfortunately.
So I often go back and forth as to whether I like this one versus Addams Family Values.
Yeah,
More.
it's a great
Addams
sequel.
Family Values too. I mean, these are two of the greatest comedic movies of all time. Of course, Raul Julia left us soon after Addams Family Values, and to me, I honestly have not done much with the animated Addams Family movies. The reason I can't get into Wednesday is because of the portrayal of Morticia and Gomez in that series. Luis Guzman, who I love, Luis Guzman is great, but he plays Gomez as like a buffoon.
Yeah.
Like almost uncultured in a lot of ways. I'm like, no. It's hard. When you have Angelica Houston and Raul Julia doing Morticia and Gomez, they really put their stamp on these characters. And I can't imagine anyone else doing it.
Yeah.
So I've always had a hard time getting into the cartoons or even the Wednesday series after this because of these movies.
Yeah, I think Wednesday for me, it's more, it feels a little more like a high school drama is kind of how they do it. And I don't mean that as a criticism. I think if I if that movie or if that show had come out and I was younger, it probably would have been one of my favorite fucking things to watch. Ortega is a great Wednesday, and kudos to her for kind of, I mean, she's iconic as Wednesday now, which is really difficult because Christina Ricci was iconic as Wednesday when we were growing up. And I think
yeah,
that's
I'll give her. I've got opinions on Jenna Ortega, but
Yeah.
to be this popular with that character
Yeah.
after Christina Ricci did it is
impressive.
definitely an accomplishment.
And I think that's what Values has a lot more Christina Ricci's Wednesday in it. And I think that's why I love the sequel so much is Wednesday gets some great shit in Addams Family Values. But yeah, they're both great. Great movies, great comedies. Music's great, production design's great. Angelica Houston's probably my favorite part of the first Addams Family. I just think every line that she utters is just perfect.
The lighting that is always just
I love
across
that.
her eye.
Always. It's such a great touch. Christopher Lloyd's having fun as Fester.
Man, yeah, Christopher Lloyd in this.
It's just is crazy.
I did not know. My mom had to explain to me that this was Doc Brown from Back to the Future. I had no idea.
Yeah, it's quite the follow-up.
That is Addams Family, 1991. You know, even if you have just had not seen that in a long time, it is 90 minutes of pure laughter. Great family movie. You know, great example of marriage and relationships in a movie, and I could watch this every day for the rest of my life, probably.
It's easy to rewatch. I hadn't seen it in a few years, and just putting it on was like, oh yeah, I love this scene. This scene's coming up. Oh, that's great. Oh, I'm gonna check out this scene. It works well. So speaking of comedies from 1991, my second pick is a comedy. I would say it's borderline a dramedy in some aspects. We'll get
Totally
into
normal.
that. Super normal movie. Definitely not weird at all. This is 1991's Drop Dead Fred. This stars Phoebe Cates and Rick Mayall, the British comedian from Blackadder and some other big TV shows, especially overseas in the mid to late 80s. It also has Carrie Fisher and Tim Matheson and Marcia Mason and Ron Eldard. It's actually a really talented cast of some, you might not know their names. but
Very
it's-
capable cast.
Definitely faces that you see, you're like, oh yeah. So this movie, it's hard not to sound. It's another pick that it's hard not to sound crazy when you're describing it. But it is about a little girl growing up in the movie doesn't say this explicitly, but it's an abusive home. And as a little girl, she has this imaginary friend named Drop Dead Fred, who anytime she gets in trouble, anytime something crazy happens, it's not her, it's Drop Dead Fred. And the very beginning of this movie, it's the mother, which I love Marcia Mason in this. She's fantastic. She is telling a bedtime story, and she wraps it up with, yeah, if this little girl had been naughty and run away, like something really bad would have. She's like trying to scare her daughter into submission, and it's very obvious. It's really intense. And the little girl just goes, "What a pile of shit." And then it cuts to the credits. You're at the opening credits. You're like, what the? Like, that little girl
You know
just said-
exactly what you're getting in.
Yeah,
at
and
the
it's
start of
like this
movie.
Calliope, like circus-esque type music starts kicking off. And I love the opening credits. It's all because little kids, they draw their imaginary friends. So the entire opening credits is children's drawings. It's hand-drawn opening credits with misspelled titles. Like instead of film editor, it says flim editor. And it has all these misspellings of different titles and actors' names, which I just thought was really cute. I looked it up because it seems like a very specific animator had to have done this, and it was Joe Ranft from Pixar actually did the hand-drawn opening credits. Joe Ranft being the co-director of Cars. He voiced the caterpillar in A Bug's Life. Very unfortunately passed away in the mid-2000s after Cars. But yeah, I thought that was a cool little fact. So the movie starts that way, kind of crazy, zany, but then it cuts to just the craziest 5 minutes of this adult woman's life. Phoebe Cates is playing the little girl, all grown up, in a very, very, I could not believe how fast they go through the shitty stuff that happens to her. But right off the bat, she's on her lunch break. Her marriage is dissolving. She's trying to talk to her husband, and it's very obvious that he has this side girl, Annabella, that he keeps bringing up. And so we're in media res in this woman's life falling apart. She goes through that. She gets her car broken into, her purse stolen out of her car as she's on the phone with a friend, a payphone, because it's 1991. And then another guy comes by and jumps into her car and just steals it outright. And so then she shows up to court late and looks crazy. She is a stenographer, I guess, for the court, and she is just completely unprofessional. And the judge asks to see her and fires her. And this is all, I mean, literally just within like 3 minutes of this movie, she's losing out on her marriage and her job and her car, just like bam, bam, bam.
Which, by the way, Tim Matheson,
so great.
He's
They're married.
Such a piece of shit.
They're
married. Yeah, they're married.
Yeah. And it
right?
wastes no time.
Yeah.
It shows that he's
What
a car
piece of shit.
salesman. Like right away, it's like he works at a car dealership. He's a piece of shit. He's talking about this other woman that he's been seeing. And Phoebe Cates has this, and Phoebe Cates is perfect in this role, in my opinion, is this kind of mousy-ish, quiet. It seems like she's very reserved. But as the film goes on, it cuts back and forth between Phoebe Cates as an adult and Phoebe Cates as a child, and you start to see what led her to be such a closed-off person. You start to see that her mother is very verbally abusive, very controlling, was terrible to her as a child. And it is this weird, it's a broad comedy, but they're asking you to laugh broadly at things that you're like, that's not really funny. That's kind of, that's not good. And so it'll cut to like scenes of the little girl and her imaginary friend, Drop Dead Fred, making mud pies and cutting
I had
hair.
so much fun watching just them having fun.
Yeah.
Making this kind of shit. Like, I had fun watching this.
It's a lot of fun, but it always ends, those scenes always end with the mother just being terrible and cruel. And then the father is this British guy who seems like he's working all the time and isn't around much. He's a little softer with the daughter. So you can see she had a really hard time, and now she's having a very hard time as an adult. And to me, this movie is two different movies. It's either a fantasy film where this woman, after going through a very hard time in life, in the first 10 minutes of the movie, she starts to see Drop Dead Fred again. She's staying with her mom because of the stuff going on with her husband. And she sees this imaginary friend. He comes back to her life, and a lot of zany, crazy stuff ensues. And so on the face value, you could say, okay, it's a funny, broad fantasy movie. But there's this whole other movie where it's also about a woman facing her PTSD from her childhood trauma and going back to her coping mechanism of having a imaginary friend. And now she is relearning as an adult how to use this coping mechanism. And the arc of the story is really, how can she grow up enough to not need her imaginary friend anymore. Rick Mayall, who's doing just a zany performance as this imaginary friend, he's making fart jokes. There's this thing where he's allergic to a type of flower that her mom likes, and when he sneezes, he bounces all over the room.
Dressed to the nines in every scene by these costumes, man. I love these. I would wear these on the Riverwalk.
It's like a bright green and bright yellow with bright yellow accents suit that he wears, and he has this very carrot-topped color, crazy red hair, and his eyes, he looks a little like the sloth on Ice Age. He looks a little like that John Leguizamo's Ice Age character. So you have these scenes where he's in the room and she only sees him, and they're genuinely funny. He calls her mom the mega bitch, which is crazy because this is allegedly a children's movie.
This was very much marketed as a child's I remember begging my parents to go see this, and I was not allowed. In fact, I didn't actually get to see this movie until a few days ago. This was another first time watch for me, because all the kids wanted to go see this movie, and when the adults found out what it was really about, I didn't get to see it. I was verboten.
Yeah. I mean, he several times, Drop Dead Fred, looks up women's skirts or dresses, and it's very funny. One of them, he's
lots
just
of upskirt in this movie.
Yeah,
it feels like.
One of them, the perviest one, he's just like, no panties. But the funniest one is an older lady, and he looks up and he goes, cobwebs, which makes Phoebe Cates laugh. I think his performance to me really works. It's definitely like
Oh, yeah.
I believe Jim Carrey was also considered for the part. which you can see,
Boy, that's kind of a sliding door right there. Dude, if we got, man, A24, listen up. I need you to make a legacy sequel to Drop Dead Fred starring Jim Carrey.
Yeah. Well,
Make this happen, please.
and then their big choice was Robin Williams as well, which that makes sense. But they went with this British comedian, Rick Mayall, who was only really known to British audiences, wasn't well known to American audiences, which may have hurt the box office in America, but he really is a perfect choice for it. He is insane in this movie. Like Drop Dead Fred is crazy. The energy that he brings
Unhinged.
just unhinged. But when called for, he does fear really well when he is projecting her fears back to herself. Because really, you either think that Drop Dead Fred exists or he doesn't.
I went down a rabbit hole on this as to
is he real or not?
Well, because you've got the scene where you've got the world of all the other imaginary friends at the doctor's office. And so you're like, is this a kind of another realm, another world where these imaginary friends truly do exist? Which, the ending of the movie, I think, supports that a little bit. But at the same time, this is an imaginary friend. So physical things have to happen in the world, which means Phoebe Cates has to do it. So how much of this is Drop Dead Fred is actually a being that can manipulate things versus this is all Phoebe Cates' imagination and she's the one doing things? Because depending on which side you fall on that, some very different interpretations and feelings about it. I think I told you, I said, this is either one of my favorite comedies that I missed out on as a child, or it's one of the most abhorrent movies I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah, it's rough, and it's it's interesting. I think for all the talk,
I sat on the first one, by the way.
Did you? Good, because that's how I view it. I think this is a good case study for how these two picks that I have so far, Toy Soldiers, problematic in the way that it's aged, not as problematic at the time. This movie was considered problematic, inappropriate for children. So I think with Toy Soldiers, it has aged poorly, but at the time, culturally, it was acceptable to do a story like that. Conversely, I think Drop Dead Fred at the time was controversial, being viewed as a children's movie, but now 35 years later, this is a really good movie about mental health. It is a really good movie about childhood trauma in a way that is accessible to anybody. And I think what struck me, it was really emotional watching it. My brothers and I, we grew up in an abusive home, and this movie was so important to us as children. So it was really emotional to revisit it. And at the end of the movie, when she has to face kind of her childhood and let go of it, let go of the power that her mother has had over her life, let go of what it did to her to have her father abandon her. They get a divorce is what it is implied, that, and he just doesn't come around because he can't stand the mother. And I think it's interesting that her real father is British and Drop Dead Fred is British. I think that's on purpose, these things. And so it was just really emotional thinking of what this movie meant to us as children, and seeing how Phoebe Cates, her character, as much as it's done as a joke through a lot of it, there's some really sweet moments with her friend, played by Carrie Fisher, where her friend should be blowing up at her, but instead she decides to have an imaginary fight with Drop Dead Fred because of something that she's mad that, she's
It's
blaming.
a great scene.
Yeah, like, 'cause she has to tell her something bad about her house, her friend Carrie Fisher, and she's like, it was Drop Dead Fred. And so Carrie Fisher has this imaginary fight with Drop Dead Fred and really commits to it. She's a good friend. It was really touching. I thought, as much as it's a silly, broad comedy thing to do, I thought it was touching. Carrie Fisher rewrote some of her lines and made the character her own, which she always did in every role. So not only do you have that aspect, but you have Marsha Mason, kind of an unsung actress for us, even at this time, but is a 4-time Oscar nominee actress. She was married to Neil Simon, and Neil Simon wrote a lot of movies.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. Like, that was kind of my reaction was, wait, what? But for our parents, Marsha Mason, she was this actress that, it was her and James Caan did a few really big romance movies. that she was nominated for a few of those. You know, that you have this prolific actress that she really commits as this mother. And when I was a kid, I think her performance was very like, oh, she's just the evil mother. But rewatching it, you could see, okay, she's abusive towards her daughter. She's bad, but Marsha Mason does give this quality to her where she does seem to be trying to love her daughter, and there is something human about what she's going through with her husband, and it's not very one note. In fact, Marcia has also one of the low-key funniest moments where Phoebe Cates' character is at the mall and she's listening to this string quartet, and eventually you hear this out-of-tune violin, and she looks up from the audience, and Drop Dead Fred has the violin and he's making horrible sounds with it. And she's, at this point, she's really upset at how she views he has been holding her back and ruining her life. And so she goes up to Drop Dead Fred and takes the violin and breaks it. And then as she's breaking it, the camera like cuts back to the musician, and it's a real violinist that she's just taken this violin and broken it. And then it cuts to, in the mall security office, her mother, Marsha Mason's there writing a check. And I've never known it because as a kid, I just didn't really get this. But her mother goes, really, playing such an expensive violin in a shopping mall? Like, she fucking puts the blame on the musician. I thought that was so funny that her detest for this, like, really playing such an expensive violin in a shopping mall, even though her daughter just blatantly broke the violin of her own
Which
volition.
I was gonna say, there's this scene in the mall where there's just this random concert, like classical concert going on in a food court, and people are like legitimately like
sitting down
there for that concert. And at first I was like, this is like so stupid. This is like but honestly, man, thinking back to it, I remember going to, in Arlington, Texas, where I lived whenever I was this age. There's Cooper Street, all right, Cooper Street, and on Cooper Street there was this huge, gigantic mall that opened at that point in time called the Parks Mall in Arlington, Texas. I was there opening day. And shopping malls used to be kind of like how people used to get dressed up to go on airplanes. Shopping malls kind of used to have a whole like different status. And I had to really think long and hard about this. And I did a little bit of a Google search. This kind of thing was a thing. Like, there were events like this, major events, and people would get dressed up and go to the mall specifically for stuff like this. So just this little tiny scene that's kind of like, what is that going on there? That's kind of stupid. But like that was a thing. That was actually a thing. And then like the mom, you make so many great points, and that this is a great movie about mental health. It does not, and it doesn't bang you over the head with it. So much of what we get today is, look at my trauma. Mm-hmm. Look at my trauma and look at me working through it, bringing like such a spotlight onto it. But this is done in such a clever way, in my opinion. Some people might think it's not so clever. Some people might even think it's offensive. But I think it's a clever way of addressing some of these things. Now, Carrie Fisher. I had a couple questions about Carrie Fisher's character here, because the setting is Minneapolis, correct?
I believe so.
What is in Carrie Fisher in this movie lives in a houseboat?
Yeah.
Do you know anything about the housing market in the houseboat market in Minneapolis? Is this a thing?
I have no fucking idea. I'm pretty sure it exists just so Drop Dead Fred can sink the houseboat in a funny scene, because
it's great.
As Phoebe Cates sees her husband driving by in a boat, and so she's like, I'm gonna start up this houseboat and chase my husband. And Drop Dead Fred, it's a very good performance
in another great costume.
Yeah, he's got like a pirate like hat, bright green pirate hat. And she tells him explicitly, don't touch anything. And he does a really good job of like a big kid of, well, what if I touch that? And she's like, really, don't touch anything. And you could see how antsy he gets, and he finally starts touching stuff and ruins it. And so it's a great scene. And I'm sure that the whole houseboat thing for Carrie Fisher, I legitimately think it exists just so they could do that.
My favorite thing about Carrie Fisher's character is that there's one scene where they're along the lake or whatever, and they're not exactly jogging. They're just kind of like,
Carrie Fisher's kind of like power walking.
She's kind of like power walking, but at the same time, she's smoking a cigarette. Such a good choice. And it does. I love the way that this movie portrays males.
Hmm.
We're just a bunch of pieces of shit.
Yeah. It really, yeah.
And even Carrie Fisher, I mean, it almost very much targets these guys that target women that are 20, 30 years younger than them. Because you even get that a little bit
Yes. Yeah.
in
Yeah.
Carrie Fisher's relationship, because Carrie Fisher, she would have been late 30s, early 40s.
Yeah.
The
Something
dude
like
she's sleeping with, that she gets like what she says she gets like one strip a month or something
Yeah.
like that. Which, by the way, this guy's married too, that she's having an affair with, but he's also like 20, 30 years older than her.
that. Yeah.
Well, of course, I'll say this. People in the 90s and the 80s in their 30s and 40s looked a lot older than we do today for some reason. People
Yeah.
did not age as gracefully back then.
It's probably the smoking while they're power walking.
Because that dude that she's having an affair with has some one-liners, man. He's asking if this is a girl thing.
Yeah. It's just a girl thing.
He also says that the only kind of dreams that he has are wet dreams.
Yeah. So, yeah, there's, again, very inappropriate jokes in this movie. This, pseudo children's movie. Hey, I'm all right. I watched it as a kid. But
yeah, I'm glad this will probably make its way into a rotation. Like I said, this is the first time that I had the opportunity to actually see it. It was one of those that was kind of lost to time for a decade or two, and then really glad that I was able to come back to it. Is there like a good 4K of this or something?
not 4K, but Vinegar Syndrome did a Blu-ray of it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I have that.
Another great movie, Neil, Vodka and Pants Pie.
Vodka and Pants Pie. There, we've got
we've got the
vodka
mouthwash
themes, yeah.
from Toy Soldiers, and we've got the Pants Pie from Drop Dead Fred. A lot of good food choices in this episode.
A lot of good alcohol in movies about children. And another quick shout out to a cameo, Annabella, who is the name of the mistress that her husband is sleeping with. We get to see her in one scene, and it's Bridget Fonda in an uncredited role. Apparently, she was just friends with Phoebe Cates, and Phoebe was like, "I'm shooting this movie, come do this role." So, Drop Dead Fred, check it out. It's weird, it's great, it's funny.
All right, good pick, weird pick in a lot of ways. If you were not around in the summer of 1991. I'm sorry, because in June of 1991, we had Kevin Costner, Robin Hood, Bryan Adams fever. My last pick for 1991 35th anniversary movies is Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. And man, what a wonderful medieval romp that has all sorts of kind of tonal. This movie changes tone like
Has
every
everything.
30 seconds.
Has everything.
In fact, this is how, little side story here from yesterday. I was teaching a yoga class, and I took a yoga class, then I taught one. But I came out, and everyone was in the lobby, and they were talking about a movie, and I was like, "Oh, what movie are y'all talking about? I love movies." And nobody knew what the title of the movie was. And so the woman who was telling the story about this movie said, "Well, it's got John Cusack and Julia, America's Sweethearts."
Hell yeah.
And I knew it like right off the bat.
Fucking love that movie.
The entire room looks at me and was like, "Chris, you got that really, really quick."
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's
our flavor of
love movies.
autism.
I know. I like exactly. And so Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, directed by Kevin Reynolds, who would later work with Kevin Costner in the wonderful Water World.
Yeah.
This movie took over the world for about 5 weeks. This was its box office, just to kind of like start this out. It worldwide at the time made $390 million worldwide. Today, that is just shy of being a $1 billion movie. Robin Hood, $1 billion movie. So in context here, this is Kevin Costner right after Dances with Wolves. Just, I guess, right after Truth or Dare. His appearance in Truth or Dare, because he's sporting the mullet from this movie in that documentary.
Neat.
Yeah, peak Kevin Costner. Now, what this movie is often known for is Bryan Adams' hit song "Everything I Do It For You." Do we still do charts these days? I don't know what the equivalent of this would be, but this song, the single in and of itself, was not in the top 10, but it was number one for 7 weeks in the United States. Basically, this was the song of the summer in 1991. In the United Kingdom, it spent over twice that amount. It was 16 weeks at number one in the United Kingdom. Absolutely nuts. As a 7-year-old going to see this movie, of course, this also felt a little bit like the first kind of adultish movie that I could kind of get into and to actually like see in the theater. This movie really allowed, I think, children at the time to like go wild with their imaginations, not to mention a really tremendous toy line. Have you ever seen any of these toys?
Yeah, I have.
I owned a lot of these. And this was, of course, this was a time where every single movie we need to have some kind of toy line
Thanks, Star
associated
Wars.
with it. This is one of the less problematic toy lines. I think one of the this is one of the most problematic ones, probably RoboCop.
Oh, yeah.
Kids love this movie. Adults love it. Pretty much the only people that didn't love this movie were like highfalutin movie critics at the time. But this was a fun, and then I just got done watching one of the special. So this does have a really, I do have to plug this, a really tremendous Arrow 4K here. And it's not a bare bones 4K at all. There's a couple of documentaries on here specifically done by Arrow. Just watched one of them this morning where they kind of specifically said that this was designed to be a good, Kevin Costner says it, a good Friday or Saturday night at the movies. And that's exactly what this is. And while it is incredibly long, it is about 2.5 hours long. And if you do get this Arrow 4K here, there is an extended version of it.
It's even longer.
That goes an extra like 12 or 15 minutes, and you get a lot more of the witchcraft. You get some background on the barons and all that. A lot more of the witch in there. But yeah, highly recommend this 4K here. And I just got to point this out. These arrows, if you don't know it, often will, I'm going to get my mic, often will have a reversible DVD sleeve.
Yeah.
Yeah, isn't that cool?
Yeah. I love
Very
Arrow
cool stuff.
Yeah, big shout out to Arrow. Some of my favorite. The Inglourious Bastards. Arrow is incredible. They've done a bunch of them that are just really good. Waterworld. I have Arrow's Waterworld, actually.
I do too. It's a good one.
Good.
I mean, I don't even like the movie all that much, but I have a Chronicles of Riddick Arrow 4K. I find that movie just abysmal, but
I don't like it either.
Arrow 4K release of it somehow makes it tolerable.
That's funny.
So a little bit of background on this movie. There were actually, Robin Hood was about to be a big thing. There were actually 3 different competing Robin Hood projects going on at the same time. The commonality throughout all of them is that Kevin Costner knew that he was going to be playing Robin Hood in one of them. So it was a sure thing. Kevin, he's like, I'm going to play Robin Hood. He just got to pick. And one of these projects was actually from John McTiernan.
Oh.
And so you can imagine... You get John McTiernan directing Robin Hood and with Alan Rickman, and you just have to imagine there's that scene where Robin Hood and the Sheriff of Nottingham kind of go up to the top of the tower and they haven't seen each other in so long, and so maybe the sheriff is just kind of pretending that he's like William Clay from one of the other islands. Costner asks, he gives him an arrow and says, "Hey, have you ever shot one of those?" He's like, "No, we have paint arrows. Have you ever done one of those?" William Clay. So John McTiernan almost directed one of these. Now, Alan Rickman,
that's what it'd be called.
Alan Rickman, pretty much the only reason that he committed to this is that he was able to rewrite so much of his own dialogue. We'll get to some of that dialogue here in a bit. But I think this movie is beautiful from a production standpoint. All these castles. I think the costumes are wonderful. Mm-hmm. Robin Hood, Kevin Costner, has this guy's got scarves.
Oh yeah.
Scarves galore. I mean,
Yeah.
in any given scene, he's probably wearing like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different scarves. Scarf game in this movie is absolutely amazing. The score. Let's talk a little bit about the score. You may not realize it, but this is one of the absolute most famous scores of all time because it's been used in almost every single movie montage at the Academy Awards that has ever been. Trailers. It's also the intro music for the Morgan Creek
Yeah.
studio intro over, which funny enough, it's not in this movie.
Yeah.
Morgan Creek comes on and it's not
Yeah.
playing that. It starts right after it. But yeah, and I say this, anytime I need to be uplifted, I need to get my heart racing a little bit, feel a little bit inspired, turn on the Michael Kamen score, which God, Michael Kamen left us way. I think he died in his like 50s or something like that. But
It's
man, this
it's
is
the best part of the movie.
absolute banger of a score.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Not
really,
nominated. The score was not
nominated
fucking
for score. Yeah, I didn't get that in my. I know Bryan Adams was nominated for.
Yeah,
I don't
but
even
the
think he
score
won Best
wasn't.
Song.
He did not
That
win
is
Best Song.
insane.
It was his first. It was Bryan Adams' first Oscar nomination is this movie, and then he would go on to be nominated a couple more times, never win. And yeah, the score wasn't even nominated. Dog shit, absolutely dog shit. Academy Awards. How dare you?
Let's talk Alan Rickman. Alan Rickman is.
Yeah.
If Alan Rickman is not in this movie, I don't think that this movie is remembered at all. I don't think it makes $1 billion. I think so much of this movie hinges on Alan Rickman's performance, which is worth the 2.5 hours by itself.
This caps off a villain trilogy of Alan Rickman, fucking classic. He does Die Hard in 88, Quigley Down Under in 1990, and then Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves in 1991. Just one of the best villain runs of all time.
He literally, I don't know how much more of a baller villain thing it can be than to call off Christmas. He literally asks for Christmas to be canceled in this movie. One of my favorite parts of this movie is the climax of the movie. I love a good heist. I love a good planning. Anytime in a movie where we're planning out one of the major sequences with like models or something, and so they plan out the whole, we're going to go get Maid Marian in the castle and rescue her and get rid of the sheriff of Nottingham. They're planning this all out in the forest. And the setup for this, whenever the minutes leading up to where they're coming into the castle, they're dropping swords, they're kind of stealthily coming in here. Such cool stuff. Really, really, really love
The sword
this.
drop is especially cool.
It's fucking awesome. The whole plan here is that I can't remember why he needs to marry Marion to get into the family.
Yeah, it's a royalty, the royal blood.
Yeah, it's a royalty thing. And we do get a little problematic rapey towards the end.
Okay, but to the sheriff's credit, when he's being asked to rape her, he initially is like no, and Alan Rickman, what is he? He's like I want one pure thing, You're like, oh, like what the fuck?
Does have to wait until they're married. But Alan
God.
Rickman and Kevin Costner at the end of this movie going broadsword against each other.
Yeah, neither of them know how to fight.
This is possibly, to me, the best use of spit in a movie ever. The little bit of white dribble that Alan Rickman has on his chin at the end of this movie is so great. And then Robin Hood stabs him with the thing, and his death.
Yeah.
That Rickman milks this for like 2 whole minutes. He's walking around. He pulls the dagger out. He gives it to Maid Marian.
Yeah.
Such great stuff.
And the witch spits as well. There's a lot of spit in this movie.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. And you also, you got Christian Slater in here as well.
I couldn't take him seriously. I could not take him seriously. He's like, his name's Lil John. I'm like, shut the fuck up.
Dude, your Christian Slater is uncanny.
He also slips in and out of his British accent.
He absolutely does.
Just like his brother, yeah. Because they end up being brothers.
They're related, so yeah, they have inconsistencies.
I'm like, really? Those 2 guys with the huge foreheads and long hair and broken English accents, they're related? Who would have thought?
Yeah, but Christian Slater gets to deliver one. I don't know if this is the earliest, the first, but the the one fuck that you get to use in a
Yes.
PG-13 movie,
I
and it's
noticed
a really
that.
great one too, where they get launched over the wall, and he just
By
looks over, he's like,
catapult.
"Fuck it," he cleared it.
Yeah. It's
It's a really great one. We can't leave this conversation about Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. You talked a little bit earlier about there's the, you start to get the marriage of a little bit of digital with the analog here.
mhm.
The trailer for this movie
Yeah.
was spectacular for one reason, and it was Aerocam. Man, you get the close up shot of the arrow, and I think it's like shot at like 300, 400 frames a second,
Whatever it
or
is.
something like that. But yeah, some of the first uses of CGI, I think, very, very effectively in the movie. But I tell you what, that shot at the end of this movie with Kevin Costner with flames in the background,
That's badass. The
and
poster
he's
shot.
pulling the arrow. That is such a badass shot, man.
Yeah.
I actually rewound that like 3 times to watch that over and over. And despite that it's like a 3-hour movie, I rewound that like 3 times. It was so cool.
This whole episode, by the way, sponsored by Arrow. Arrow movies, arrows in slow motion, Arrow cam.
You of course get the Sean Connery cameo at the very, very end of the movie, which from my understanding was a absolute complete surprise. He's uncredited.
Really?
I think it was a surprise to everyone on set as well.
It's so funny. I feel like he only shows up just to say Lord of Locksley. I was like,
Lord of
I was like,
Lox.
he's the only one who knows how to say that in this movie. Hell yeah. Lord of Locksley. It's like, how many
And,
L's did he just put in that?
You've got the production, the costumes, you've got the score, you've got the song, you've got the star power, and then you end this whole entire adventure, this romp in medieval times, and you end it at a wedding. And I love movies that end at a wedding. And not only is it a wedding, but you get the breaking of the fourth wall at the very end too, which just makes you feel good, man.
Yeah.
I always come away from this
yeah.
movie feeling so energized. It's just so much fun. I mean, and despite the fact that it's a long ass movie, there are, I don't know that I would call it boring parts. It just kind of, sometimes it loses its way. Morgan Freeman disappears for like 45 minutes at a time. But every bit of it, even just like being I just love being in the forest, the little forest village that they create. Hot take, I like this forest. I like this forest village better than Endor.
It's a terrible take. Terrible take.
If I had the choice to live on Endor or live in Sherwood Forest, I would choose Sherwood Forest.
No, you choose Endor because on Endor you're a god. Okay. Sherwood Forest, you're just a fucking peasant. No thanks. Yeah, I hadn't seen this movie since I was maybe, I don't know, 12 years old. It was a seminal VHS watch for us growing up because my parents, like everyone else around that time, were obsessed with Kevin Costner. So that was huge. We watched all of Kevin Costner's old movies growing up.
What do you think it was about Kevin Costner at this point in time? Because he's not a great actor.
No, I don't think anyone would ever accuse him of that. He has an old school stage presence or screen presence that when you see him, and you can even see it in Kevin Reynolds' first movie with him, Fandango from like the late 80s. There's just something about when you roll a camera on Kevin Costner, it just seems right. Yeah, this guy's supposed to be in movies. There are things of this movie that I love. It's one that I loved as a kid, and I didn't want to revisit it for the longest time because I don't know how well this holds up. I actually think it was a little better than I remembered in my estimation. Something doesn't fire for me in this movie. Like I like it, and I agree with pretty much everything you're saying. Like the score is incredible. It looks good. The best thing I could say about it is it led to one of my all-time favorite comedies, which is Robin Hood Men in Tights. And it goes to show how big
It's
Prince of
almost a direct,
Thieves. Yeah. It's almost spoofing just Prince of Thieves. That's how big of a movie Prince of Thieves was when it came out. I liked the title shout out, like Maid Marian calls him the Prince of Thieves. Oh, that's a cool shout out to the title.
And she has, again, I think one of the best screams on screen of all time.
Let me file that down for later. Chris likes women screaming. Okay.
At the climax, whenever Robin reveals himself and she screams, Robin!
Yeah. It's fun. The Merry Men. I feel the same way about this movie as I do Kevin Costner's Wyatt Earp, where I enjoy everything else in the movie besides Kevin Costner. I can't get into him as Robin Hood. It makes me kind of laugh. I think I missed the boat on that generationally. I actually like Waterworld more.
I love Waterworld.
Yeah, I enjoy that more. I think Kevin Costner's stilted way of like line reading like works in a movie like Waterworld. Alan Rickman, it's one of his only big awards. He got a BAFTA out of this.
Yeah.
So that's also cool that he was recognized. Love Alan Rickman.
Yeah, I mean, and the choices this dude was making in this movie. I don't know if this is in the extended version or the theatrical version, but there's one bit early on in the movie. Tell me if you saw this. He's down in the witch's basement, which I don't know if that's what it's called, but the witch's basement.
Yeah. It's my favorite bar I go to after we record.
In the witch's basement, there's of course, and there's a lot of devil worship mentioned and brought up out in this movie. So there's an upside down cross. And, I have to imagine this was a choice by Alan Rickman. So Alan Rickman goes up to this cross and he turns it right side up. Then he turns it upside down. And he just says, sometimes I don't know that I can tell a difference.
That might be extended.
Shit like that. I think it's extended.
That's good.
But yeah, good shit, man. Good shit.
Well, that's a solid pick. If you think this movie sucks, I wouldn't argue with you. But also, if you really like this movie, I wouldn't say you're wrong, because it's a charming movie. It's a throwback adventure film. It's greater than the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. It's like, yeah, you could pick on most things in this movie individually, but taken together, it's just a fun blockbuster. You're like, yeah,
it is a 4-quadrant old school summer blockbuster that is exact. I think when I heard Kevin Costner say it on the documentary earlier today, a good time, a good Friday or Saturday night. A group of people just going to the movies, grabbing up tubs of popcorn, candy, soda, and sitting down and watching this in the theater. Man, it's a good time.
It makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense. And I let Amazon or Apple, whoever it was that I rented it from, immediately the credits hit and it's like, you want to watch this next? And I'm like, fucking no, I want to hear the Bryan Adams
song.
Song.
Stop doing this shit.
I don't want to see what's next. I want to hear Bryan Adams sing a power ballad. That's what I want. And so I left the credits rolling and just, you can't tell me it's not worth fighting for. You can't tell me it's not worth dying for. Look into my eyes.
I don't know at this point in my life if I will ever marry. I may be single the rest of my life.
Mazel tov.
However, I do know if I do get married, this is going to be the dance song.
Hell yeah.
I will dance to my bride to this Bryan Adams masterpiece.
It's great. Yeah, the movie, it has everything. The only thing it's missing is a nice like monologue at the end from like Morgan Freeman. Like I wish he'd been like, get busy stealing or get busy dying, like, just go on this big monologue about Robin Hood. That the movie needed that, but that's fine. Yeah, fun pick. Okay, well, that's your last pick. So I would argue this movie is the best movie that we will be talking about today. I do think over the years it is regarded as one of the best movies that came out 91, although at the time it was overshadowed because it didn't really make the same money as these other movies did. It was I think it was only nominated for 3 Oscars. It actually won 1 Oscar, but for a performance that isn't even necessarily remembered to this day in the same way, right, as like a Silence of the Lambs. Most people just think of Jodie Foster and Anthony Hopkins and these, from that year from the Oscars. So this is Terry Gilliam's 1991 big studio movie for him, The Fisher King. This was the first time Terry worked in the studio system, which he didn't want to do. This was the first time he shot in New York, which he did not want to do. Basically, to do this movie, Terry Gilliam had to say yes to doing a lot of stuff that he really didn't seem to want to do. But what drew him to this story is it's a modern day retelling of the King Arthur, the Arthurian legend of the Fisher King. It is about Jeff Bridges, who is a shock jock who goes by the name of Jack. And the movie opens with his radio program, and it's kind of hard if you didn't listen to radio back in the day, that like even the idea of a shock jock,
Shock jock.
yeah, like that's not really a thing anymore because podcasts have just replaced radio, just like streaming has replaced cable. That we reinvented the same shit. And so he is a radio DJ in New York. He looks like a modern day piece of shit. You're like, oh, this guy's so douchey. His name's Jack. Right off the bat, it shows like his kind of annoying radio personality is taking calls and kind of making fun of and talking down to these people. And when he ends his show, he plays the "Hit the Road, Jack, don't you come back."
There's two needle drops at the start of this movie.
Yeah,
that are
like
just
right off
fucking
the bat.
great.
So good. And so early on in the movie, Jeff Bridges, in his radio hour, he talks to a frequent caller, this guy named Edwin. It sounds like Edwin is troubled and he's going through a tough time. And Jeff Bridges' character is really mean to him and dismissive. And you see him very like cockily deal with this, this radio call in. And then it cuts to, Jeff Bridges living in this crazy penthouse, very industrial steel. He has this two young woman there. You can see he's into the opulence because this is 1991. So it's very much of the, Howard Stern is a huge thing. And the Reagan era, the economy in New York, all the financial bros are booming. And you can see, the yuppies are running that part of the world. And you can see Jeff Bridges is kind of buying into that. And it's a really concise beginning where not only do you get to see him in his DJ environment, but then you get to see Jeff Bridges. He's practicing lines. His agent's trying to get him to in it like a cheesy sitcom that he's going to try out for, and like the auditions the next day. And so we see him like practicing lines, the sitcom catchphrase, "Forgive me.
Forgive me.
Forgive me." Forgive me. He like does all these different ways of doing it. It's so funny.
Which I tell you what, at the very beginning of the movie, he's just like sitting in his like very cool bathroom bath. He's got
bathtub.
Chinese takeout.
Bubble
he's
bath.
Practicing. I'm like, I kind of want to do that.
Yeah.
wearing wellness masks.
Yeah. So he's gearing up for this big audition. It's going to change his life. He's going to have a famous TV show is what he's hoping for. And then the news comes on, and that same radio call-in, Edwin, that he had dismissed and made fun of on air and was a real jackass too. It turns out that this man went to a bar with a shotgun and killed some patrons and turned the gun on himself. A very dramatic switch, and you see Jeff Bridges simultaneously horrified, saddened, guilt-ridden. The icky part of like, well, this ruins his career. So he's put in this place right away where he has everything and loses it. And then the movie jumps to 3 years later. And so 3 years later, he is living with the beautiful Mercedes Ruehl. She is fantastic. She actually won an Oscar for this. I don't know why people don't talk about this performance that as much, I guess, because maybe it's not as flashy, but it's just such a great performance. She plays his girlfriend, who is more appropriately aged for him and who more has her shit together. And he is obviously in a stupor of alcohol and depression. And she, in one of my favorite or funniest scenes, is she's running a video store. And so she's mad at him being lazy and always drunk. And so he needs to go out and man the video store. And the comedian Kathy Najimy from Hocus Pocus plays this obnoxious customer who comes up to him and is asking for, a specific kind of movie, but won't give any kind of specifics, is being very obnoxious. And Jeff Bridges grabs a porno movie called Ordinary Peepholes instead of Ordinary People. So fucking funny.
I did think about pausing this movie at certain points in time just so I could see what the different titles of the adult movies were.
Yeah, because they
the
have like
background.
some funny, and I don't know if they're real movies or
Yeah,
whatever.
I'd like to know.
So he's in a bad place, and so he's depressed. He's not living a good life. He gets really drunk one night, stumbles out on the streets of New York. He looks very like a homeless guy. He's having a hard time. He decides that, it might be better while he's drunk, especially, that he's just going to put concrete blocks on his feet and get thrown into the bay, kill himself. While he's deciding if he's going to kill himself, these two young guys show up. I guess their thing is they like to look for homeless people and attack them. It's really fucked up. So they're about to beat Jeff Bridges up, and it's the first time you hear Robin Williams, his voice outs across, and he's on a pile of literal garbage, and he looks like a garbage knight is the best thing I could describe. He's like a homeless garbage knight looking guy. And so the movie propels you into this story of Jack, and Perry is Robin Williams, that's his character's name. And so Jack, after being saved by Perry, he gets a taste for Perry. And so you start to see that Perry has these delusions of grandeur, and he's explaining to Jack how he's on a mythical quest for the Holy Grail. And he shows Jack like a photo from a newspaper of this rich guy in New York who has what looks like a trophy cup or something like that in the background. And so in Perry's mind, this is the Holy Grail, and God needs him to go get this. That's his divine quest. And which is funny because Jack is like, there's no way that's a Holy Grail. And Perry goes, I know that I was surprised. There's nothing divine on the Upper East Side.
And yeah. But it introduces the idea very firmly, which a big theme of this movie is romanticism.
Yes. Yeah.
You can romanticize anything.
The whole movie is drenched in romanticism.
Do you want to explain the Fisher King for those who may not?
Fisher King, I hardly know her.
Well, if we go back to Marcus Brody in Toy Soldiers, one of his former pupils, I believe his name was Indiana Jones, once went on a last crusade and encountered.
So King Arthur hates snakes. No, in this Arthurian legend, the Fisher King, it's about a man tasked with guarding the Holy Grail. Sometimes it's like just the Holy Grail. Sometimes it's like the cup of the Last Supper.
Basically the dude at the end of the Last Crusade.
That actually is.
Kind
yes,
of.
100%.
Yeah.
And he's usually wounded in some way. Sometimes it's just a retribution, infliction by God, this punishment. And so because the Fisher King is wounded, his kingdom becomes a barren wasteland. For those of you who had to read or got to read T.S. Eliot's Wasteland poem, it is based off of the Fisher King. Beautiful poem. It's like 1920 something. I know poems aren't like the coolest thing, but that poem is fucking awesome.
Hey man, just like they say in the movie, there's nothing trashy about romance.
Nothing trashy about romance. That's right. So the Fisher King, so his kingdom goes to ruin. That's why they call him Fisher King. He just passes his days fishing. And so I think Percival, usually in most stories, Percival is the knight who finds the Fisher King. That's why Robin Williams' character's name is Perry, a nod to Percival. So that he's seeking the Holy Grail, and he's been on the quest for a long time. Now, different tellings of the story. Really, the issue is classically Percival shows up. He tries to get the Grail from the Fisher King, but he doesn't ask the right question. Which the right question in most of the stories is asking the Fisher King why is he wounded? How did he get wounded? It's asking about his wounds instead of being focused on the one thing that you're searching for. And so in most of the stories, the knights like go and they don't do that, and then they have to like come back and they have to prove themselves worthy. The movie Fisher King is interesting because really, even though Perry is the like Percival stand-in, it's really Jack's quest to figure out how to become less selfish and instead of treating Perry as a project that he can get something out of, actually ask his friend, what's wrong with him? How can I help what has wounded Perry? But early on, you find out, I don't think this is a spoiler. I love this movie so much, I can't talk about it without spoiling. So I'm just going to say, if you really want to see this movie, stop right here.
Yeah, I would say on this one.
It is well worth the watch. If you're interested, I am about to really spoil it. So far, we've just kind of gotten into the first 15, 20 minutes. But okay, so you've been fairly warned. So after the first evening of being saved by Perry, Jack is in Perry's like makeshift room. It looks like a crazy person lives there. He stumbles his way out, and the man who owns the building that Perry's like staying under kind of accosts Jack. And in their conversation, Jack learns that this man is letting Perry stay there because of the horrible tragedy that they went through. Because 3 years ago, Perry, who that's not even his actual name, I think it's like Michael is what they say his name was. He was at a bar and his wife was murdered in front of him. So it was Edwin, the guy, from the radio. It's the bar that he went to and shot up. It cost the life of Robin Williams, Perry's wife. So Jack freaks out. And so now he feels this guilty. And so first Jack looks at his relationship with Perry as, well, I got to do something to help this guy so I can feel better. I fucked this guy over, I guess. So I'll deal with some of his crazy nonsense, just to kind of get through it. So it's simultaneously, it's a funny, like there's a lot of funny interactions with Robin Williams. There's this woman that he's fallen in love with just from a distance. And he like talks like a knight about like this woman that he loves. And you can see that he's a loving, gentle person, that all of the other people that are unhoused that he hangs out with look up to him. He has this like wife for life, but he also has this, it's a hallucination of this red knight, and it's really well done the way they designed and lit all the shots with this. It's an actual horse. It's this big, hairy knight in red armor that Perry will sometimes see, especially as his mind gets closer to the truth of the reality that kind of split him, that his wife was murdered in front of his face. Anytime Jack tries to force that or something in life reminds him of it, this red knight shows up, this hallucination, to push Perry to a more comfortable place by running away from it. And it's really gnarly, but if you look
such an effective metaphor and image at the same time.
And it's really, this is really sad. The Red Knight, so he shoots fire, and it looks like he has like something coming from his helmet that shoots fire, and he has all this red like flare behind him, and it's meant to represent the worst thing that Perry has ever seen, which the movie does show the actual shooting of his wife. He was talking. I guess it is pretty graphic. And she gets shot in the face, like in the head, as he's talking to her. And when you see the blood splatter and you see that, you realize that this Red Knight, the fire coming from his mouth is the shotgun. And you see all the red stuff, his brain's only way of handling the gore that he saw from the woman that he loved. Once you make those connections, it's just like, fuck. It just made my heart like, like squeeze. And so as much as Perry has this love for life and this quest that he's going on, he's also in his own way, running from the hard stuff. And so the journey that they go on is really satisfying, I would say, as characters. They give him a job at the video store so he can meet this woman played by Amanda Plummer that he loves, and all just the most sweetest interactions between
that video store scene.
It's so, Robin Williams is incredible. He was nominated for this, but for my money, of all of his big performances, this is still like the most underrated. That people 35 years later just aren't talking about it enough.
This is one of my least viewed, and again, I think this back. I firmly believe that if this movie came out 1 year earlier or 1 year later, this movie would be remembered a whole hell of a lot more than it is today, because it just ran up against the Silence of the Lambs tidal wave at the Oscars. And I firmly believe that, it might not have overcome the Kevin Costner thing the year before, but man, I think just the timing of this movie, just by a year or so, would have changed things quite a bit.
Yeah, and it was, Terry Gilliam wasn't the name that, the Fisher King kind of gave him the name after. So they really wanted Robin Williams in the movie, and because Robin Williams had worked with Terry Gilliam in Munchausen and was friends with him, they really were like, well, we'll get Terry, and that way we can get Robin. And Terry's very open about this. Terry Gilliam also, he said he would never do a script that he didn't write, but he didn't write this script. So it's one of those things where it shouldn't have worked, but everything just conspired together to work. Richard LaGravenese, who did the script, he was nominated for a screenplay nomination for this. It's such a great screenplay. You can watch this movie, and as the themes kind of wash over you, at first it's just kind of an entertaining, heartwarming, it's funny and dramatic kind of movie the first time you watch it. Then the second time, you're seeing more of the symbolism and everything that's baked into every frame, every scene. There's a really great small performance from, what's his name?
Michael Jeter in this, man. Oh, he should have been nominated.
Yeah, he's so good. And he plays this unhoused person that has lost friends to AIDS. Like, he makes mention of that. And a really tragic, character that initially Jack and Perry help him out when he's having kind of a fit in Central Park. But this movie really doesn't, like I said earlier, it doesn't let Jack off the hook so easily. He doesn't just flip a switch and he's like, I'm a good guy now, man. Like everything comes to a head after he puts so much work. He sets up dates with it's just Lydia, right? Is Amanda Plummer's, yeah, Lydia and Perry. Like, you know, he's doing everything he can to absolve himself for Perry, but he's not listening. Perry has already given him the secret. He needs to get the Grail. Like that is Perry's quest. And Jack is not listening to him. He's not really seeing him for who he is and what he needs. And instead, he's trying to pigeonhole him into like, this is what I would like for my life. This is what you should like. And so that all kind of crumbles down, and Jack gets another opportunity to go back on the radio from his agent. And not only does he take it, but he breaks up with the only woman that's ever loved him, and Mercedes Rule, in one of the best scenes of the movie, where she forces him to like say why he's leaving and like what the meaning of their relationship has been.
When he tells her we can take a break, and that's the scene you're talking about. Is her that's the Oscar right there.
Fucking yeah, it's so real. It's one of the most real relationship breakdowns I've seen in a movie. Jack, he goes back to his douchey ways, and you're like, man, you're really thinking like he really didn't like learn his lesson. He sees some of his old like friends and they're still homeless, and so he ignores them. In one of the shittiest scenes, Michael Jeter is trying to like call out to Jack, and Jeff Bridges just fucking ignores him and walks in the building, and it pissed me off so much. And it's not until Perry, who is having another one of his breakdowns, he's seeing the Red Knight, but what's actually happening is those two kids from the beginning of the movie, they're back at that under the bridge looking for homeless guys. They see this guy and they remember him. They brutally attack him. And so then Jack goes to the hospital and Perry's comatose. And at first you think, is it just he's like in a coma, and the doctor's explaining, no, he's catatonic. So now we get scenes of Jack. He obviously cares for Perry and he's crying over Robin Williams in his catatonic state. And then he starts arguing with Perry, even though Perry's not talking to him. He argues himself into like, fine, like if what you need is the Grail, you know, if that's all it's going to take, you know, if that's the only thing, then I'm going to fucking do it, man. And so he takes all of the plans, the crazy plans that Perry had to steal the Grail, and he does it himself. And not only in a very fairy tale twist, in the process of breaking into this person's, you know, it looks like a little castle in New York. In the process of breaking in and stealing this Grail, he does another good deed, because there's a man who had accidentally taken too many sleeping pills. And so he intentionally goes out the front to set the alarm. That way the EMS gets there. And so Jack is finally doing the right thing. And what happens is, and I'm trying not to cry. We cry.
Yeah,
we always talk about crying. This scene, I was a fucking mess. So
I've got the quotes right. Yeah, so Perry wakes up and he looks at Jack and he just says, I had this dream, Jack. I was married. I was married to a beautiful woman, and you were there too. Perry says, I really miss her, Jack. Is that okay? Can I miss her now? Man.
Dude. God.
It's good stuff.
I get chills, and it just makes you want to cry. You know, and Jeff Bridges does cry and doesn't say anything, but you know it's Perry accepting that what happened to him happened, but also letting Jack know that I know that you're a part of this worst thing that happened, and I just need you to be okay with me being sad about it, and we can still be in each other's lives and still move on. And God, it's just one of the most human affirming, life affirming moments in a movie. To me, that scene is what makes this movie a 5 out of 5 masterpiece that I could just rewatch once a year and feel all the feels. And it's not that everything gets better for them in their lives. And what I love is the last scene of the movie. It is this Central Park. They're both laying out naked, which is something that Perry tries to get Jack to do earlier in the movie, staring at the sky. And it's showing that, you know, Jack has learned to play the fool, because we all have this archetype, the fool, inside of us. And Perry has taught Jack to accept that side of him. And while at the same time, Perry has accepted that there are some things that he can't change or slay. This quest, virtuous quest that he's on, he has accepted what has happened to him in his life with his wife being murdered. And then it just pans to the New York skyline and all these fireworks and things go off. And it's obvious that it's a fantastical touch. And it does this big kind of like the end fireworks thing that any other movie would be cheesy and stupid, but in that moment, that blending of the romanticism and the fantastical elements and the real friendship, it's just one of my favorite endings to a movie.
Yeah.
I fucking love this movie so much.
Yeah, it's such a great example of how, you can kind of see the distinct stages of friendship being developed in
Yeah.
this movie, and I think this is important today. You have often talked about, men today are very lonely.
Yeah, it's true.
We don't know how to make friends anymore. And to see this relationship develop over the course of 2 hours or so is a really beautiful, beautiful thing. And then, for me, this is actually only the second or third time I've seen this movie, despite the fact that Terry Gilliam is probably in my top 5 directors of all time. Brazil is a top 5 movie for me, which, by the way, a shout out, there's a blink and you miss it Brazil poster in the video store at the very beginning of the movie. So, I think a lot of this, unfortunately identify quite a bit with Jeff Bridges' character at the beginning of this movie. Not that I was like some kind of shock jock or anything like that, but I was very much for a good part of my life, a career professional. I had never seen failure in any ways. My trajectory was always up, 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 up and up. Went from education, and then I had a really cool job working for a startup, making tons of money, working really hard, and just was on top, felt like I was on top of the world. And so much of my identity was wrapped up in that career, in that lifestyle. And then in January of 2023, due to AI and crypto, I got laid off. And had never experienced anything like that in my life, and experienced a tremendous amount of loss whenever it came to who I thought I was. And it was around that time that I started teaching. And it cost me personally. I was so depressed about it, in such a funk about it, very much how Jeff Bridges is in this movie.
Yeah.
And it cost me personal relationships. It cost me a lot. And so for for anyone out there that has struggled with friendship, or you have so many people today are still being laid off and losing their jobs, or they think that their jobs are their identity, this is a really great movie for you. The journey that Jeff Bridges goes on, in particular, who I identified with more in this movie, is so cathartic and so wonderful. And then you add on top of that just, you may not have tons of people in your life, but that woman that does care about you, that, is the one who is constantly there asking you if you're okay, or calling you, the friend who is reaching out to you. Those people are so, so important. And what is important today is not all this other bullshit. It is human connection.
Yeah.
And I kind of weep over the public places in which we used to be able to have a lot of these conversations and connection. And one of those, for us, it is the video store.
Yeah.
The whole idea of the video store in this movie, and that kind of being almost in a way Perry has this great, he has a crush on Amanda Plummer, the character Lydia, and they kind of contrive this thing to get Lydia to the movie store by giving her a free membership. We did used to have to pay members. This whole sequence is such a great trip for me. Getting the membership at the video store, and then 10 free rentals. And I mean, this sweet little scene that plays out there. But this, the video store was a place where we had human connection with one another. You didn't just look up on Letterboxd or IMDb like, hey, what's a movie that you would recommend?
Yeah.
That's a question we need to be asking each other, I think, a little bit more this day and age, rather than relying on the fucking algorithm.
Yeah. And it actually reminds me of kind of how you and I became friends. We've never really shared on this podcast how we became friends, but similarly around, I think 2023, I may have met you briefly in 2022, but we frequented the same coffee shop, had some mutuals, And
Well, I'll just come and say, I was dating a woman, and Clint was friends with this woman. And we kind of knew we were
Yeah, we
kind
just
of like
saw
in the
each
same
other.
space
Yeah.
and whatnot.
Yeah.
And after that woman and I kind of parted ways, Clint was the one to kind of say, "Hey, you want to grab a cup of coffee? Do you want to go see him?" Because I am not a social person at
Yeah.
all. I will never be the one to it. And some of you who are watching this or have listened to a couple of our episodes may be like, "Oh no, you're like you can talk da da da." I'm an actor. I am a trained performer. I feel so much more comfortable in front of a microphone
Yeah.
or in front of 1,000 people than I do in interpersonal, relationships, or I can't do small talk. It drives me
Dude,
nuts. And so
yeah. That was what was funny the first couple times talking to you. I didn't realize that you just hated small talk. And there was one day, I don't even know if you probably don't remember this because this is before we were really friends. I ran into you and you were obviously not doing well. And I was like, "Oh, hey, Chris." I was like, "Hey, how's it going?" And you were just kind of like kind of dismissing. I was like, "Well," I was like, "Even if it's not good, like you can tell me." You kind of opened up about some of the hard stuff you were going through. I'll never forget. You were like, "Yeah, I'm sorry. Like, I just hate small talk. If you really want to know how I'm doing, like, I'm not doing good.
here's how I'm
Yeah,
doing.
like here's how I'm
I'm
doing."
not doing good. I actually do that. No, now that you say,
Yeah.
yeah, I kind of had memory hold that, but now
Yeah.
that you say that, I
And
know. I totally remember
yeah, I
that
remember
moment.
thinking like I was like, "Oh, okay." I was like, so me, I could talk to a wall. So I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, he doesn't like small talk. Like, well, then we'll talk about some real shit." And so then I think we set up coffee, and it was we started talking about movies, and then it was like, "Oh, okay, here it is. Here's what we were meant to talk about the rest of our lives together. It's movies." Like we
Yeah,
both.
and I think
Yeah.
it's just such a wonderful, powerful thing
Yeah.
about the movies too, is that it was not until that. I mean, I think that first conversation we had it must have been like a 3-hour conversation
Yeah.
about all sorts of like not all sorts of stuff, but all
Yeah,
sorts
yeah.
of movies.
Yeah,
Like we
movies.
just went from movie to movie to movie to movie.
Yeah.
And whenever you find someone that's that deeply interested in something you're also that deeply
Yes.
interested in, and particularly whenever it is in cinema,
Yeah.
man, it's a special thing.
It
It's
is.
a special thing.
And like you said, and I think that's the cool thing about doing like a podcast with you about movies is this is something that we would do anyways, and we're not doing this to like get a bunch of sponsors and listeners, but it's more.
We'd be having this exact same conversation
exactly.
at the coffee shop or the bar.
Yeah, and it's to find just a few people that connect with us in the way that we connect with movies is fun and it is worthwhile to make those connections. So I all that being said, Chris is a great friend.
And to me, this is why this movie hits so hard for me because, my trajectory was very similar to Jack's. And then you're very much a kind of Robin Williams, kind of Perry-esque kind of, force in my life. So I think this movie is going to end up holding a very, very special place in my heart.
It's just one of those evergreen classic stories that no matter what time of your life, I think you'll get something good and different out of it. And even if you just like, Robin Williams being silly and funny, like there is that. And there's also the really heartfelt stuff. And maybe you see that in me because I look a little like Robin Williams. I think we're the same height as well, just as silly when I don't shave, especially. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm rocking Robin Williams today. So, all right.
Yep.
Those are our picks.
Dude, that's a good one.
1991.
That's a good one.
What a year.
Absolutely.
What a year.
35 years. 35 years. And it's so, when you do look at the whole context of what is going on today and it's kind of surprising how much certain things are different and how this may be a cliche thing to say how much things are different and how much things are actually still very much the same.
Yeah.
We've made progress in certain areas. We've regressed in many others just recently.
Yeah.
1991, good year. The good year for cinema. I mean, let me shout out a couple of other movies from 1991 that might not have just made the cut. You've got Five Old Goes West, An American Tale. You got Backdraft, that was also a recent purchase. You got the sequel to Bill and Ted's. You got Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey.
So good.
Going on this year. Boys in the Hood.
Classic.
You do get the Cape Fear.
Come out, wherever you are.
The conclusion of the Child's Play trilogy. I almost revisited this one, just didn't find the time, but you got Curly Sue.
Yeah,
Curly Sue.
Fucking love Curly Sue.
I probably have not seen that since the theater.
I love that movie. I don't know if it's good, but I love it.
Yeah, Doc Hollywood, The
Love Doc
Door.
Hollywood.
Man, Father of the Bride, Ernest Scared Stupid, Fried Green Tomatoes,
Good.
Hudson Hawk, King Ralph,
Yeah.
Last Boy Scout, Life Stinks, My Girl.
Yeah.
There's just so many
So,
movies to
yeah.
choose from. And then on top of that, we haven't even gotten to the big, then you still got the big ones like Silence of the Lambs,
Yeah. T2.
Terminator 2.
And internationally, Raise the Red Lantern and Delicatessen. Like there were some big
Yeah.
international movies that year that have kind
Roster
of
is
lasted.
deep this year.
Yeah, it's good. And I say this, I think every year, if you love movies, you'll find movies that you love every year.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's always fun to kind of center on one specific year and kind of go down that rabbit hole. If you enjoyed this podcast, give it a like and a review and whatever you have to do in whatever form that you're watching or listening to us. And then you can follow us on socials, 3 Pics Podcast on Instagram. You can get us at our letterbox, Chris's Beer, Yoga Movies. I am Clint T, that's 2 T's at the end on Letterboxd. On my Letterboxd account, we often post lists for the episodes, like the 6 picks. So if you're ever interested in checking out what's coming down the road and want to watch along, or watch along first and then come listen to the episode, however you want to do it, there's options. Yeah, I think, is that all?
Yeah, and
the other?
Despite the fact that we're already in like the top 500,000 movie podcasts of all
Easily.
time. Very easily. Hey, shout us out, message us, let us know, if you have an idea for a category or, an idea for the show. We've already received a little bit of feedback in certain things here and there and make adjustments. So let us know.
Yeah. In fact, my cousin who I talked about on the space episode, who I said was going to be disappointed that I didn't pick Stitch. I've already heard from her that she is very disappointed, especially upset that, in her words, Rocket Raccoon is basically just Stitch anyways. So easy there. Although Found Family, Space Pilot, I kind of get it. But yeah, I'd love to hear all that stuff. So, hit us up.
So next week's episode,
Very
cool one.
Monster Squad.
We are creating a monster squad. So we are going to be selecting each 3 monsters / creatures to create our own squad. I'm already enjoying watching a couple of the ones that I've got going. I've got a whole... Yeah, I think y'all are going to like what I got for you next week.
Yeah, for sure. This is one of the more... I like these sillier, kind of open-ended. You can take it narratively in whatever direction you want. So yeah, this will be fun. And it's coinciding with Lee Cronin's The Mummy.
Cronin's The Mummy.
Yeah, it's coming out. So that looks scary as fuck. I'm excited.
Yeah, I don't know much about it. Don't want to see any, like, trailer-wise, guys. I see enough. I'm done. I don't need to see everything. Okay,
I'm good. All right, my liege.
Ripley the yoga dog. Say bye. Or she's the movie dog on this podcast.
Oh no, you two-timed bitch.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, that's cute. Wow, freshly cut Ripley. Nice. Yeah, my 60-pound doodle's not necessarily camera ready. It's hard to pick her up, Bowie. All right. Well, thanks for listening, y'all. We'll see you in another 35 years.
All right. See you later.
Bye.